business meeting for the Charlotte City Council. And we are going to begin this, as always, with introduction of those of us around the dais, followed by an invocation by Councilmember Fallon and the Pledge of Allegiance. And I want to note that we'll begin our meeting with an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation is a personal expression by the member intended to solemnize our proceedings. It is not an endorsement of any particular religious belief. Rather, we note and celebrate the diversity of our community, including our religious diversity, and including those who do not have a religious faith. You're welcome to stand, but you're not required to do so. I would, however, ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's start with introductions with our clerk.
Stephanie Kelly, City Clerk.
Arlenia Ivory, District 2.
Dimple Ajmera, District 5.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Patsy Kinsey, District 1.
Claire Fallon, at large, for the temporary moment.
Julie Eiselt, at large.
Mayor Jennifer Roberts, welcome.
Good evening, Vi Lyles, Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening, James Mitchell, at large.
Greg Phipps, District 4.
Good evening, Kenny Smith, District 6.
Good evening, Lawana Mayfield, District 3.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Bob Hageman, City Attorney.
Councilmember Fallon.
All righty. You don't have to stand.
I shall.
Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be from my unconquerable soul. In the fell of clutch of circumstances, I have not winced or cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my faith. I am the captain of my soul.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now I need a motion to approve consent agenda items 20 through 54, with the exception of 39. And I know that someone wants to speak on item 30, but we're just going to pull 39 for a separate vote. But the motions for 21 through 54 with that exception.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's a motion and a second. And Councilmember Ajmera, you wanted to address item number 30.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, agenda item number 30 is for approving the infrastructure reimbursement, and that's on the east side. And this is a great project, and I do want to give kudos to our staff and developer for revitalizing this, redeveloping the Coliseum Shopping Center. Many months ago, I should say, I'd met with a developer who wanted to develop this site and redevelop this site, and had faced many challenges and had worked with our staff to bring a quality development that I think we can all be proud of, and that's going to bring retail and auto dealership. So I'm very excited about that, and so are the residents of District 5. So I want to thank our development team and our staff for continuing to bring opportunities on the east side. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on those consent items? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we take item number 39, Charlotte Water Partnership with Discovery Place. And there are two parts to this agenda item, and Councilmember Mayfield is recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is action A and B. A is to approve a contract with Discovery Place for the development and delivery of the Charlotte Water Everywhere Student Education Program for an initial term of 1 year, meaning a new program. And B, authorize the city manager to renew the contract for up to 3 additional one-year terms with the with a possible price adjustment and to amend the contract consistent with the city's business needs and the purpose for which the contract was approved. I had this pulled because I was asking for additional information, one, as to how it fell into our focus areas, our 5 focus areas, because we only have 2 roles with youth, our out-of-school time partners and the Mayor's Youth Employment Program. So I asked our director, Mr. Gullett, earlier, he and I spoke after our dinner meeting, of which I understand he's about to retire, so I'm going to chalk off his response to my question to that piece that he's on his way out the door. But I did not have a clear understanding as to, one, why we are creating this relationship, and 2, what is the mechanism that we're going to track, because we're starting with 5th graders to teach them about our water system. And when the original question was, what role or financial contribution is CMS making towards this if the request from the city is an anticipated delivery cost of $80,128 per year with an estimated contract expenditure over a 4-year term of $353,000. The response from staff was that CMS does not have a financial role that they're contributing to this. So I asked, again, how does this fit into our 5 focus areas for us to allocate these funds? And if we are doing it, why wouldn't we focus on high school students, since we have the Mayor's Youth Employment Program? We also have our youth program that we just utilize our teenagers, and thankfully they are represented tonight. Why are we not working with them opposed to going to the 5th grade? So for that, staff can feel free to respond, because I did not get a clear answer from Mr. Gullett as to why this is on the agenda tonight without there being a whole, unless my colleagues had a conversation prior to tonight to know that we were going to be asked to pay out potentially up to $353,000, which is a job that really falls into the Board of County Commissioners or school board, not the City of Charlotte. And at any given time.
Is there someone here from staff who can, oh, Mr. Gullett's here.
Good evening. So the 5th grade is when the school system's curriculum targets education about the water cycle. Charlotte Water believes that it's really important that we reach out to the community and engage our 5th graders so they can get a good, timely message about the importance of water and the water cycle and the environment. So this is an opportunity to reach every 5th grader, 94 schools, through the experts with Discovery Place and the partnership that they have already established with Charlotte-Mecklenburg School System.
So for further clarification, Mayor, and again, Mr. Gullett is retiring, so whoever will be stepping into that role will probably be the person that can better answer the question. What is our matrix and the metrics that we're going to be using to even identify if this is a good investment for us to go into the middle school, which is not our role? It is not in our 5 focus areas. How are we going to track to see if there is success in this outreach to ensure that starting with 5th grader is going to benefit, and what is the goal of how it ties into our 5 focus areas? Because the role of the city is very clear. So I'm still trying to understand why we would have this as an item to be voted upon tonight, where we also, it's not a 1 year, let's look at it and consider it. We're also asking to give the ability to give the city manager the ability to just renew the contract, meaning it would not come before council for us to necessarily receive an update. So I'm trying to understand, and again, this may be whoever is coming in to step into this role moving forward to explain.
Councilmember Kinsey has done a lot of work with Discovery Place. Councilmember Kinsey.
Well, I have, but I'm also chair of the Environment Committee, and I think that's where this fits in. It's a lesson about the environment. And I think my feeling is when you start children at a younger age, they're going to learn it. And so I support this, and I think there's no better partner than Discovery Place. They're a partner with us, with the city anyway. We own their building, and we're getting ready to hopefully do some upfit there. So I think it's a logical partnership. I think it does fit into our environment committee and focus area. And I think I just think it makes sense. And I support it. In fact, I was going to pull it for the same reason, because I think it's, and I am partial to Discovery Place. They do a great job. And I think it just, to me, makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Councilmember Kinsey. And I think when you put it in the context of our environment, we know from what's happened in our country, when you look at Flint and you look at other cities where the citizens do not appreciate the expense and the care that a city has to take to keep its water system updated, to make the investment in stormwater and water filtration, especially in the second fastest growing city in America. And we've also discovered that elementary and middle school is where students and future citizens form their habits and their patterns, which is why we also work with youngsters about things like litter cleanup, about sanitation, other things that they're going to keep as habits the rest of their life. And absolutely having a clean water supply is in everyone's interest as a top priority for us. And if the schools already have that in their curriculum, and we can assist with that with a partnership we've had for decades with Discovery Place, I think it is in our lane. And I am very pleased to support this, even though I don't get a vote.
So follow up, Mayor, because this is a conversation where 7 years later, once that child graduates from high school, there's nothing in this language that, one, again, is tracking in order for us to show that this is beneficial, us going in, nor is there anything moving forward. Now, I'm not going to vote against it, but I do hope that all of my colleagues that feel like this is a good investment when we have so many other pressing issues that are environmentally related today will recognize that later in this meeting when we have a discussion regarding a resolution around protecting our environment, that same support will be around the table for us to move forward and sign a letter to show that we're going to do what we need to do to protect our environment moving forward, because that makes a lot more sense to me than making a partial investment now that's not going to be tracked for the 7 years through graduation.
Councilor Kinsey and then Ashmara.
Okay, I wanted to check with Mr. Gullett. Somewhere I either heard, overheard, or something that schools used to take the students to our wastewater treatment plants, or is that true, or did I dream it?
No, Ms. Kinsey, you did not dream it. We have in the past had a lot of school groups, school kids that have toured our wastewater plants and our water plants, and we've had the opportunity to reach out and help teach them about the environment through that process. For the last several years, that has diminished, and so we really need an avenue and a pathway to reach those students, and this, we believe, is a very efficient and very effective way of doing that.
I'll continue one other thing. I suspect all of us have toured the wastewater plants. It's fascinating, and I think this is when it gets the kids' attention, and hopefully, Ms. Mayfield, hopefully when they do graduate and they're older, they'll remember to turn the faucet off instead of letting it run so long, because water is a precious commodity, and there's a limited amount of it, and I think they need to learn that early.
Councilor Ashmara.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Gullett, is this water education program funded from our ratepayers? Are ratepayers funding this program?
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess, is that part of the, I guess, do all the ratepayers know that they are funding this education program?
Our budget is entirely from our customers, and so every expenditure that we have is coming from that revenue source. So to the extent that they've reviewed our budget, this is a budgeted item. This is not something that we're doing ad hoc. This is a budgeted item that we're bringing to you for approval of the contract.
I recommend that this should be part of the budget development process, just like other programs, educational programs that we consider. Because it is an educational program.
I think you just said it is part of the budget process. Yes, Councilor Phipps.
Thank you, Mayor. I too had also requested that this item be pulled, but for a different reason. I actually applaud this program. I think it shows a good faith effort by the city to participate with our schools, in as much as we've been operating heretofore in a siloed approach, meaning that, schools are somebody else's responsibility. I think what we heard from the Opportunity Task Force is that we need all hands on deck when it comes to the development of our younger kids, and I think this is a program to help do that. So I was wanting to applaud this approach. I've been on several tours of the wastewater treatment plant in my district, and I think that's something that would be of worthy import to the students, especially the elementary school students of Charlotte, in as much as they would be starting out at a young age to be able to understand that water cycle and just how precious water resources are. So I'm going to be supporting it for those reasons. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Phipps. Any further discussion?
Move approval.
Oh, that's right. We hadn't moved it yet.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Okay, is there a second?
Yes, I have a question. One more question.
Is there a second?
All right.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Okay, Councilor Mara.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mr. Gollett, you said this is part of the budget development process, this program?
For their budget.
For water budget, not the city annual budget?
It's part of the Charlotte Water budget from the Enterprise Fund, yes, ma'am.
Got it. Because I don't remember seeing this when we had a discussion for the annual city budget.
General fund.
General fund, I meant,
Yeah,
yes.
that's different.
This is part of the Charlotte Water Enterprise Fund budget.
Thank you.
Councilor Mitchell?
Barry, just one question. Is this time sensitive? Because I want to make sure that some of the discussion around this dais, that we're not sending the wrong message. I think part of the angst is the process and how this came so close to our agenda as opposed to going to the environmental committee. So I want to make sure that people out there saying that city council is not for educating our youth. That's not the message we want to send. So is this time sensitive? Do we have to do it tonight, or do we have opportunity to have more policy discussion about it?
I'm not quite sure what the schedule is for implementation, but we would certainly like to move forward if you so choose tonight.
Okay. So we do have the flex. Okay. So it's not time sensitive. If I'm reading you correctly.
No, sir, it's not time sensitive.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Mayfield?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Mitchell, thank you. I don't want my colleagues to feel that I do not support us moving forward. What I have a challenge with is the process and the way this process looks. This is not information that all of council had a discussion about. We are looking at allocating upwards of $300,000 plus. There are a lot of other needs in the community that came from our community letter. There are some direct needs with some of our young people, specifically our teenagers who will be coming into the workforce very shortly, opposed to starting at the 5th grade without having a clear plan of saying, okay, this is going to track these students from the 5th on up to high school, and or here are targeted schools that we're reaching out to in order to get this information. Nothing is in this information that was presented to us that gave us background on what schools have been a part of it, what school outreach will happen. So it is not the piece of not wanting to support it and educate our youth, because that is, the city has stepped into that role many a time when the county and the school board were unable to do so. But we just passed an almost $1 billion bond as a community. And we're now having a conversation for additional funds. We have already allocated funds to Discovery Place. If we're going to look at additional resources, then I think it is fair for council to ask the question of how are these resources going to be allocated, as well as how are we going to track success once these funds are allocated before we potentially open yet another line item that we will be committed to, which we have done historically when the city and county were unable to fulfill their responsibility. Because as was said, we once had field trips to the wastewater plant. Those were eliminated. Was there any discussion to say we're financially unable to do that on the school board side? We're stepping into a role that we need to think about moving forward. Do we have the capacity to add this line item in? And if so, how do we go to the community and say, this is why we are asking you to continuously pay an increase in your water that is built in to pay for items like this? We have to have more transparency in the conversation. But it wasn't a piece of saying, no, don't support Discovery Place. Discovery Place does amazing work. The process is on how this conversation came before full council, and a request for funding for a project that full council never had a conversation about.
Councilor Smith.
Mr. Gullett, question. Also, thank you for your service. I hope you have a, I've enjoyed working with you these past 4 years, and I wish you a wonderful, thank you. Question. This $350,000 ballpark, could that money be applied to fix sinkholes?
Could it be applied to what? I'm sorry?
Fix the sinkhole issues that...
No, sir. The sinkhole issue is not part of the
Water
and sewer
it's really
fund. It's part of the
Okay.
stormwater fund.
Sorry, one last question. The total amount of this is $353,000 over 4 years?
Over the time period, yes, over the 4 years.
And how many Charlotte Water customers do we have?
We serve about 1 million people. We have about 290,000 accounts. And this will reach about 7,500 to 8,000 fifth graders every year at 94 different schools in the county.
So it's about $1
5 cents a household per
household over 4 years.
25 cents
25 cents a year.
Yeah.
Guys, come on.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I do support this educational program. I have personally visited our infrastructure, water infrastructure facility, and thank you, Barry, for giving me the tour of the entire facility. I think it was a very great learning experience for me. However, I would like to look at the enterprise budget for water and see, I guess, currently we are looking at $353,000 over the 4 years. And while educational component is very important, I guess there are a lot of residents, when we had the water rate increase of $1.73 earlier this year, I had gotten some emails where residents were upset. So I think we need to have some conversation and transparency to Ms. Mayfield's point about how do we balance that in a way where we are not increasing our water bills, but at the same time also addressing the education component. So to Mr. Mitchell's motion, I would like to second that motion. Did you make the motion of referring to the committee?
I have not, no.
He did not make a motion.
I did not make a motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to refer to the committee.
So you're making a substitute motion?
Yes.
Second. Okay, the substitute motion to refer to committee. Councilmember McKenzie.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Gullett why he's raising his hand, because I think he wants to say something, and if not, I'll say something.
Okay, Mr. Gullett.
Okay, I wanted to also point out that to Ms. Asmira's point, that one of the things that we hope to help the fifth graders learn is how they can actually conserve water and help their family reduce their monthly water bill. That's a very important part of the message, and it's something that that fifth graders take home to their parents and to their brothers and their sisters. And so when we are reaching out to fifth graders, we're really reaching out to families. If you've had a fifth grader, you know how much they like to come home and tell you about what they learned in school. And so they do take this information home, and we do see results. We don't have a sophisticated program and process and mechanism set up to monitor and track it, because quite frankly, that would probably cost more than this program does. And so what we are interested in, though, is we are interested in results, and we believe that we're getting results. We're seeing water usage go down per capita in our system. That's important in saving us capital dollars. It's also important in saving us that natural resource, which is limited in its ability, in its volume. So I believe that this program is very useful and very successful, and that it meets a need in the community, that it fits right into the council's environment focus area, it fits right into community engagement, it fits right into public outreach. I believe that it's a worthwhile investment that will pay benefits back to the ratepayers of the Charlotte water system.
Councilmember Jamira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I do agree with you. I think this is a great program in terms of sustainability and also building a city that's going to be sustainable and teaching child when they are young. So I'm in full support of our education component. However, we have to look at our budget to figure out how do we best allocate our dollars. So does that mean we partner with other agencies, whether it's county or school board or nonprofits, to come up with the funding without increasing our water bills? So I think that's something we need to consider as part of the committee discussion, and that's the reason I made motion. Thank you.
Councilmember Kinsey.
I just want to remind us that 3 Mondays a month, we have consent items, and we approve those consent items without this kind of discussion. I think it's good to have the discussion, but we're going over and over this one item. We looked at the budget. We look at the budget every year, once a year. So this isn't something unusual. And we, like I say, we have this 3 Monday nights a month, and I think we just need to move on and just decide what we're going to do. I will be extremely disappointed if we don't go ahead and okay this program tonight. I also I won't go that far.
Councilmember Smith and then Ivory.
I support sending it back to committee just to make sure that we have a little bit of further study. I mean, we do raise rates about 6%, 4.5% to 6%, at least on an annualized basis. I would feel more comfortable supporting that motion just to make sure it's been fully vetted and that we're comfortable with the expenditure prior to tonight approving it. So,
right. Councilmember Fallon, then Ivory. I'm sorry, I keep overlooking her.
Barry, question. Why did you stop, or why did the school stop bringing the kids to you? And I'll tell you why. That tour that you give is so impressive. You understand about the water, how it's tested, the conservation. I think that would be much more effective than sitting in a museum and learning about it. What stopped the original taking the children?
I really can't speak for the school system and why they set up their programs the way they do. I can tell you that this is more time efficient than the tours, because this is in classroom and they don't have travel time, and they're getting the message and it gets to every student.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ivory?
I'm sure that one of the reasons that they might have discontinued the tour because you're talking about travel expense. And that's an added expense to CMS. And I hear and I respect what everyone is saying, but this is an opportunity for these kids to learn at 25 cents a year. It's an educational opportunity for environment. I don't have a tracking, but I do have 3 grandkids who have said, Grandma, why are you running that water? They have gone through this. I do feel like, come on, guys.
You are.
It's the truth. And so they are learning. And when they're at Discovery Place, I'm sure they do more than just this part of it. It's an opportunity to visit Discovery Place and to learn other things. So I am in favor of going ahead and passing this.
Councilmember Driggs.
I just wanted to say a public utility has to have a public information campaign in order to instruct the public on the use of the resource in question and in order to help the utility achieve the results that it aspires to. Charlotte Water, when you do look at the budget, you'll find it is a very intricate balance between the charge on utilization, charge for connection, capital cost allocations, and so on. So I think we should accept the fact that there is a public information budget within the Charlotte Water budget, and that they have made the decision to allocate some of that to this use. And I would be in favor of just going ahead and approving this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have a substitute motion on the table to send it through the Environment Committee first. So let's vote on that one first. Am I correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's a lot of conversation in between. So all in favor of sending it to the Environment Committee, having discussion there, coming back to the council, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ms. Lyles counts as a yes.
Yep.
And she was aware of that when she left the room.
Wait a minute, we're having the second one. Right?
So she was first?
She was aware that her vote counts as a yes.
So Mayor Pro Tem supports going back to the Environment Committee as well.
So that's 6.
She got up,
Her
she got up and
absence
left.
means
Her
that she's a
absence-
yes vote.
Her
and that
absence
makes
counts
it
as a
six.
yes vote.
Right.
Absence counts as a yes vote.
Yes.
So we have 6 in favor. All those against? Against delaying?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just to make sure we have the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Did someone not vote? Oh, okay, 5, yep. Okay,
That's a yes or that?
so we'll not be approving that tonight. We will send that through the Environment Committee and have further discussion. And the discussion we had tonight. And those are all the consent items.
That's ridiculous.
That was, okay. The next item on our agenda is actually a zoning item that is brought forward from our last meeting.
We're not doing that.
Okay. This is rezoning petition 2017-121. This had a public hearing last week, and council agreed to have the decision tonight. This is 2017-121 by the Flywheel Group. 19 acres on the north side of the end of Raleigh Street in Council District 1 with Councilmember Kinsey. I also want to inform council there have been changes after the zoning committee vote. Council will be required to vote to determine if the changes are significant. If they are deemed significant, the case will be sent back to the zoning committee for review. It must be a decision by a 3/4 vote to not send it back. So is there a motion?
I would move not to send it back to the zoning
Motion's not to send it back? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 7, 8, 9, 10.
Advise a yes.
Okay, so that everybody says that's everyone. So we're not sending it back to the zoning committee. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? I know there were some folks in Howie Acres who did have a meeting with the developer. And
that was on Saturday.
they met. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And is there a motion to adopt the zoning committee's statement of consistency as the council's own?
So move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Excuse me, man.
Okay,
Excuse me, man.
that's our one zoning item tonight. Next, we move to the city manager's report.
You know, right.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Manager.
Members. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'll ask Randy Harrington to make his way to the podium. Tonight's a very special night, mainly because between November the 15th and 18th, we had thousands of elected officials from across the country converge on Charlotte to learn more about emerging local trends and innovative approaches to tackling issues at the local level. So Randy has a little bit of a presentation, then he's going to hand the ball off. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Manager Jones. Again, my name is Randy Harrington, and it was my pleasure to serve as the chair of the host committee for the National League of Cities City Summit. I wanted to share with you just a few of the highlights of the week. There are many highlights, and I just want to rekindle your memory on a few of those. Let me first start off by thanking, in particular, City Manager Jones and Councilmember Mitchell, who I can remember a breakfast meeting in July, and they were very clear about the type of vision that they wanted to have for this event, this national event, a time to really showcase Charlotte and really to articulate the expectation that what we were going to do. And I hope that we delivered. It was a lot of fun doing it. And so part of those experiences that we had was we had Queen Charlotte attend help us kick off the City Summit. Our very own Gwen Jenkins, who did a great job. We also, as part of the welcome component, we had a front porch host city area. And this was our opportunity to really in the South, a front porch is so important, and it's where we relax. And thank you to Brent Cagle and the Charlotte Douglas Airport for the rocking chairs we brought out. Just had a great time, and folks really took advantage of that to relax while they're at the City Summit. It was great to see so many attendees. We had close to 4,000 attendees, and you can see almost all of them spread across one of the halls here at the Charlotte Convention Center. And they heard great and inspiring topics such as from former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and her husband Mark Kelly. We had the one and only Irvin Magic Johnson in town, who gave a very uplifting and inspirational talk at the very end. We also had a lot of fun during the City Summit, and one of those components was a version of the Family Feud, but Queen City style. And it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of participation, and a great way for colleagues across the nation to test their knowledge, survey knowledge against others across the nation. We also had a wonderful opportunity to showcase local vendors, and these were vendors who made their wares, small businesses in Charlotte, and we had 18 vendors who participated. This is at our exhibit hall. Just some amazing pieces of artistry and crafts and other great items that a lot of the conference attendees purchased, which was great. We also had a lot of fun with the closing event. And the closing event was an opportunity to really showcase Charlotte and talk about and show some of the unique features of Charlotte that makes us so unique and so much fun to be a part of. And in one of those areas, we tried to highlight a number of the communities around Charlotte, in this particular case, the east side. But you can see the Eastland symbol, Miss Ajamera, up there in the top. But a great way it is to honor a lot of our neighborhoods. And it was also concluded then with the Commodores. Just had an amazing performance. I saw many of you out there dancing most of the night, and it was really a great way to finish the conference. Had a lot of fun with that component.
And the mayor did.
Yeah.
Well, what I'd like to spend just a few more minutes on is really to thank the people who did all the hard work and made this such an amazing week. And these were some buttons that were produced by Alicia Dash, one of our host city team members. We had a lot of fun with these, and a great way to show that we were here to help and to answer any questions. Let me recognize some of those individuals. For the host city committee and volunteers, Beth Butler with CRVA. I think Beth is sitting up here. If you stand, if all the folks, if I read your name, will you stand? And Beth was really the go-to person at CRVA to help make sure that everything was done right, and her advice to me was just invaluable throughout the whole experience, so really valued that. We had Alicia Dash and Susan Elkins, who coordinated our volunteers. We had close to 200 volunteers, and they coordinated all the components of that. Just did a phenomenal job. Couldn't have done it without them. And they also provided a lot of just great assistance and help to me in coordinating and working through all the planning efforts. Whoop, all right. We had Tracy Etheridge, who worked a lot on our registration bags and signage. We had Gina Shell, who coordinated our mobile workshops, just did an amazing job showcasing all the great stuff that's going on around Charlotte. We had Alvin Burney, who coordinated and developed the Queen City Feud with Councilmember Mitchell. Did a fantastic job. Peggy Huffman, the Board of Directors dinner and liaisoning with the mayor and the NLC. We had David Christopher, who helped with our transportation. We had Don Hill, our youth event and the marketplace. Along with her, we had Lacey Williams, our youth event. We had Terry Bradley, who coordinated our constituent group activities. And also, Terry was a great help to me in many other ways. And then along with him, Donna Morell also assisted with constituency groups. She did a fantastic job.
Stephanie.
We had Stephanie Kelly, who coordinated our entertainment. We had Wilson Hooper, who coordinated our sponsorship follow-up and our administrative components. We had Kimberly Oliver, our marketplace, Market Square, helped out with that. Stand up. We had Rhonda Jackson, also helped to coordinate our constituency service groups. Then we had Kimberly Brannigan with Charlotte Destination Group. There's Kimberly, who did. Kimberly coordinated all the transportation for the event, along with our spouse tours and the board dinner at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It was just a really special way to get us going that evening, so thank you, Kimberly. We also had Clark Allen, and with Clark Allen Events, and if Clark and your team will stand up. Alex Quill and Sandra Kafko. The team just did a phenomenal job and really just replicated what Charlotte's about inside the Crown Ballroom at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, so thank you very much. Great job. And we also have, I want to recognize CRVA and Tom Murray and his team. Tom, if your team is stand up, with Steve Bagwell, Mike Butts, Jeff Rhino, and again, just did a great job operating all the kind of the back office or back event elements to make sure the week just went real smoothly, and just a fantastic team. And I also want to recognize the rest of our volunteers who are here tonight who could make it in their blue vests. If they would stand up, I think we've got a few more out here.
Councilor Mitchell has a request that everybody comes down.
Yeah, so many times you all work behind the scenes, but what you all accomplished, what you did, you deserve to be in front of the camera. So all volunteers in the blue vest, please come down and let you have your 30 seconds of fame, well deserved. Come on, all blue vests. Come on, all the blue vests.
Blue vests. Blue vests. Blue vests. You always wanted to do this.
Our volunteers, though, just they were the face of Charlotte throughout the week, and always had a great big smile. And it's through their efforts that we were able to do what we did.
Thank you so much.
You always wanted to do this.
Hey, how are you?
Very good.
Reach over those flowers. Bad idea. Darling, how you doing? Thank you. How are you? Miss you too.
Where's your blue vest? All right.
I got it.
Okay.
All week.
Always wanted to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, darling. Thank you. Thank you. Those flowers there. Kind of hard to reach over.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Success. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. The emails are still coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Don. Thank you.
Somewhere. Let me think about it a minute.
So we said it been around and everyone was commending how.
That's right. She'll know.
Great job, baby.
I'd also like to thank our youth council, who did a great job. I don't know if we still have a few of them here tonight.
Stand up again, youth council.
Yes, are you? You gotta.
How many of y'all got to meet Magic Johnson? Y'all get to meet?
Actually, this is a different group.
Oh, different group.
They do have something special for council members.
Okay.
Oh. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Randy.
And but so we really appreciate the youth being involved with the conference. And then finally, I just want to thank our sponsors. And our sponsors really came through, help ensure that we had a wonderful event. We had Wells Fargo, the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority, ICMA-RC, North Carolina League of Municipalities, AT&T, Duke Energy, Carowinds, Bank of America, Crescent Communities, Holland and Knight, Coca-Cola Bottling Company Consolidated, Foundation for the Carolinas, Odell Associates, HNTB, Charter Communications, Intersection Media, Brownstone Construction Group, HMS Host, and Charlotte Center City Partners. Just a great group of... And finally, I do want to recognize the National League of Cities themselves. They were fantastic partners throughout this whole effort. Janice Pauline, my counterpart, so to speak, at the NLC, they really were just wonderful to work with, and hopefully they'll come back someday down the road.
Actually, we didn't say this was it.
Right. I just want to say how many times I got stopped in the hallway in the convention center and people said, "You have a great city. I'm having such a great time. All your volunteers are so friendly." And some of them said, "I think I want to move here." So it was tremendous. Councilor McKenzie.
I just want to say, I was down there the entire time. It was back-to-back stuff, and it was wonderful. But I have to tell you, Randy Harrington did the job.
And I'll add, if any of you vests do not fit, we're happy to exchange them. And so Susan Elkins can help with that if you want to bring those by tomorrow, Wednesday, and we want to make sure we get you a size that fits.
Good job,
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Manager.
So Mayor, members of council, I would like to turn it over to Councilmember Mitchell for some to close it out.
Wow. I don't have a prepared speech because I'm just going to speak from the heart. How special this was November 15th through the 18th to have over 4,000 elected officials in our city. And city staff, you're the best. We received so many compliments about friendliness, warmth, Southern hospitality, apple cobbler, the ice cream. Thank you all so much. It's one thing to spend a year planning for an event, but it's another to have people to come and the event to go so successful. We all are receiving emails now that people are still talking about Charlotte and what nice time they had. So to each of my colleagues, I'm going to make sure I get it because each one of you all sacrificed and was there. Councilmember Ivory, Councilmember Ashmere, Councilmember McKenzie, I prayed for you because you did nominations, so you had a tough time.
I also did a mobile workshop.
In the mobile workshop.
In Womenage.
Councilmember Isel, you came back, you attended workshops. Councilmember Fowler.
I saw Driggs there.
Driggs was there?
Yeah.
I apologize. Councilmember Driggs. Mayor, thank you. The mayor did not get off the dance floor with the Commodores, I'm telling you. She did from Brick House to Zoom to Easy. Mayor did out, Councilmember Phelps, Councilmember Mayfield. Thank you all so much. We didn't do it by ourselves. We did it as a team. And Mayor, I want to echo once again, Randy, you did an outstanding job. Outstanding job. So I do have a certificate. May I present to Randy just an appreciation of your outstanding work. So Mr. Randy Harrington, come around and take a bow.
And you get to keep the vest. He was always there. You were always there.
That's it.
That's great.
Thank you.
Proclamation folder.
Good show, Randy.
And the way Clark Allen transformed
Oh, yes.
the ballroom, oh my gosh. They put all the city of Charlotte inside the Crown Ballroom.
Clark,
It was
outstanding
incredible.
job.
Even
Outstanding.
the Cross Charlotte Trail.
Outstanding
You did it.
I was there the night before. There were all these trees. We're like, what are all these trees doing inside the ballroom? They recreated the Cross Charlotte Trail inside the ballroom. It was really cool.
Cool.
So,
Very creative.
So, Mayor, I have two more. Alicia, please work behind the scenes making me look good with Microsoft and all the corporate sponsors. Can you please come forward? And I have one for Susan Elkins, who is the volunteer coordinator. Is Susan here? So, City Manager, can you give that to Susan for her hard work and dedication?
She's an elected official, man. Good job. Great job. Alias just outside of Charlotte.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for making brief remarks.
Mr. Manager.
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
That's it. Nice. That was a lot. It was good. That was good. Okay, so next on our agenda, we move into policy, clean energy resolution. And this actually went to the Environmental Committee, and Rob Focus is the staff resource, and Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you. I'll just say a few words to introduce it. The action requested tonight is to adopt a clean energy resolution setting an important vision for the city of Charlotte to work towards 100% clean, renewable energy by 2050. Such a resolution fits within the framework of the adopted Focus Area Plan for the Environment Committee, which calls for Charlotte to become a global leader in environmental sustainability. Other cities across the United States have adopted similar resolutions, including our neighbors Atlanta and Columbia. And one final note, this resolution is aspirational in nature.
Okay. We have...
Are we going to call on people to talk?
Yeah, we have 10 speakers signed up.
Okay.
Okay. So we have 10 speakers here this evening. You each have 3 minutes, and the first one is Joel Siegel. You step up to the podium right here.
Hello there. Happy Thanksgiving. I want to thank our mayor, Jennifer Roberts, for being one of the best mayors in the city of Charlotte's history.
Oh.
Thank you for your service, Patsy Kenzie. I'm going to be very brief. Can all the supporters of the 100% clean renewable energy resolution please rise? It's about 3/4 of this council. How do you like that? Let's give them a round of applause. Temple Ashmore, thank you so much for your support. Patsy Kenzie, thank you for years and years of public service for this city. Briefly, our resolution is very simple. By the year 2050, we'd like for North Carolina and our nation to go to 100% renewable energy. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why we need to do that, and then the rest of the speakers will go ahead and give the other reasons. But number one, recently 15,000 scientists across the world gave us a very important warning that if we do not transition off of fossil fuels rapidly, that we're looking at the possible extinction of our world, and that's mainly going to be due to drought, lack of water. Number 2, in Puerto Rico, the Category 4 and 5 hurricane that wiped out Puerto Rico was not El Nino. That was because of a hurricane and climate change. Whenever you say Category 5, that means 500 times stronger than Category 1. 2 of the dirtiest emitters of fossil fuels from plants come from North Carolina. So what we do here in terms of smog emissions impacts what happens in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. It's very important that we understand that. Number 2, the good thing about going to 100% clean renewable energy, it's good business. According to Stanford professor Mark Jacobson, says that about 99,676 construction jobs and 63,199 operation jobs would be created if North Carolina transitioned to renewable energy by 2050. And since we know that climate change is not a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese, that was what President Trump has stated, Charlotte needs to be a leader, and North Carolina needs to be a leader. Let's tell the rest of the nation that climate change is real, that we value our children and our grandchildren, and that we believe in renewable energy because it's good for business, it'll be good for our health, It's going to be good for the economy, and I think it's important that we save our planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. The next speaker is Terry Lansdell. After him, Joseph Keene.
Mayor and Council. Hopefully I won't take all 3 minutes. I don't think I've taken all 3 minutes since I first began appearing before you for these opportunities. Your action tonight to approve this aspirational resolution will be the first in a series of dominoes that will move us forward to becoming a global leader in environmental sustainability, which is outlined in the resolution itself. An interesting thing that we learned from the National League of Cities conference that just came, they had a breakout session.
That's right.
About that. You know, this is not new. This is not a scary thing. You don't need to be afraid of clean renewable energy and committing to an aspirational goal of clean renewable energy. And just know that you're not alone in this opportunity that you have in front of you. Boone, Silva, Webster, Asheville, Waynesville, Franklin, Canton, Clyde, Hillsborough, Carrboro, Watauga County, Chatham County, Macon County, Orange County, all in North Carolina are committed to this. This is not something that you should be scared of. You're not alone in this in North Carolina. You're not alone in this nationally. The Sierra Club, our partners here tonight and across the state, are working together in each individual city and municipality to make this happen. So we just hope that you take your position that you want to be a global leader in energy and sustainability, and really use this opportunity to take a step forward in this aspirational resolution to become a leader in renewable energy by 2050 and create new green jobs and help transition our community to protect the health, the environment, and the economy by adopting this aspirational resolution to move us forward to a plan to move us forward to a renewable energy future that we can be proud of. So thank you for the opportunity. Yep.
The next speaker is Joseph Keene. Joseph Keene? Yep. Oh, Don Keene. I signed up as Joseph. Don Keene.
Don Keene.
That's number 4.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members. I'm Don Keene. My first name's Joseph, but, I've been able to hide that for a lifetime. There's nothing wrong with it. I have been a member of the Charlotte business community all of my time here, 50 years. I was with Celanese for 32 years. I founded Dilworth Coffee House in 1989. I've owned various businesses around that are smaller, less known than those two. But I want you to know that climate change is something I've really just got into, honestly, when I retired finally and sold my business assets and had time to look into some things about 6 months ago. And what I discovered is that some of the assumptions I had were terribly wrong. And the assumption was that there are some steps along the way to clean renewable energy like solar, wind, and hydroelectric. And the steps along the way actually included what I understood was natural gas. I want you to know that natural gas today is at least 60% frack gas. And frack gas is nothing wrong with it necessarily as a product, but the problem is the getting of it loses such a tremendous amount of raw unburned methane that the methane actually is forming a layer and is really adding to our problem, which we already knew about, which is CO2. And so the main thing is that this city can and has been leaders in many areas since I've been here. It's got the best airport in the country, has had for 50 years that I know about. It's been a leader in many areas. We need to be a leader in this area. It's vital. It's vital to the future because, as the climate scientists have pointed out, and incidentally, I'm not very rapid to get led down a path, but I tell you something. 50 years ago, roughly, when I came to Charlotte, I quit smoking. I'd been smoking for 15 years. The science was cloudy. You had people like some of the people today who are denying the science. And I'm telling you, I knew better than that. And I quit smoking because my son asked me if I was going to die. I said, everybody's going to die. He said, are you going to die from smoking cigarettes? And I couldn't answer the question, so I said, I better stop. That's where we are today. That's exactly where we are today. The science seems to be clouded to some people, but it's really not. It's very clear. 97% of the world's scientists all agree. Only the ones who have some axe to grind would disagree. And this city can have jobs, and we can have small businesses that are based upon doing the right thing, becoming cleaner, and actually making it a very profitable change. It is a challenge. Believe me, 2050, 100% is going to be a challenge, and that's great. We're good about challenges. This city has been up to challenges all along, and we can be up to this one as well. I think I'm out of time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you, Mr. King. Our next speaker is Charles King. Charles King. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Charles King, and I'm with 350.org, representing our new local chapter for Charlotte. There are several other members of the group with me here tonight. Can you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. We're here in support of the resolution, and we hope that you will all vote to adopt it. We think that much of the work of transitioning to renewable energy can be completed long before the year 2050, which the resolution calls for. We hope that you will adopt as a reference NC Warren's Clean Path 2025 program, which calls for transition to 100% renewable energy sources for the entire state of North Carolina by the year 2030, just 12 years from now. We ask that in the next few months, the City Council draft and adopt another resolution to ban any fossil fuel projects from being built within the city and phase out any existing fossil fuel projects with a timetable. We further ask that the City Council develop a climate action plan to implement the changes called for in the resolution. This plan could take advantage of the Green Source Rider program in House Bill 589 to put in place solar power for Charlotte City government offices after the Utilities Commission releases its new rules in February. We will also be asking for your support with a variety of policies and bills at the state level in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. King. Next speaker is Jade Jackson. After Jade will be Brian Magi.
Good evening, friends. As a proud leader that's working on the Poor People's Campaign, poverty is essential. Now, I can speak on pollution. I can speak on hazard environments, being born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Although the auto industry was great, the pollution wasn't so friendly. As an employee and representative at the University of Michigan, we carefully made sure that we followed OSHA standards, again, because of our health. I moved to Charlotte back in 1998. My reason for my move was for the fact that Charlotte was the most progressive, the third most progressive city in the nation. My question is, where do we stand today? Now, as a former employee for a company called Red Ventures, I sold for a company called Just Energy. In that industry, the competition nationwide is going green. And the reason why they're going green is because of health concerns. And those states that have gone green can show the profit margin of job creation. We have a problem here in Charlotte, a problem that we face. We have a couple. The first is poverty, the homeless. We have to fix that, folks. We have to fix that. How do we fix it? We fix it, number one, by creating green energy jobs. That leads to jobs with infrastructure, solar panels, and other green energy, good paying green energy jobs. There was a study done by the universities, following universities, Stanford, Harvard, and Berkeley. Out of 50 states, we have an increase on the poverty level. We have a problem, folks. We must fix this problem. Looking at the Hidden Valley neighborhood, it has at least 50% unemployment rate. That's not good, folks. We have a problem. We must fix that problem. Health care. Now, many of you all know I have health issues. A lot of folks, medical folks, say that it's possible I could have some of these health conditions because of the pollution and polluted air in which I grew up. We all know the story of Flint, Michigan.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. That is your 3 minutes.
Thank you. I urge you to pass this. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brian Maggi. I got close. Brian Maggi.
Walk along stairs. Good evening. Thank you to the members of the City Council for providing this platform. I have words here because otherwise I'll go far beyond 3 minutes. I'm used to having an hour because I'm a professor of atmospheric sciences and climate science at UNC Charlotte, just up the road, a member of our community. My teaching, my research, my service, our activities as an academic are all intertwined with climate and climate change and sustainability. I represent myself here, of course, and I do not speak for the UNC system or UNC Charlotte. Now, energy and climate change are intertwined because most of the energy we use is from the burning of fossil fuels. We all know this. We need to transition away from the reliance of fossil fuels to minimize the amount of global warming, and this will, in turn, help the people of our city and county avoid more severe heat waves, droughts, flooding events, all of which have repercussions on city systems such as water resources and air quality, among other things. Leadership at the municipal level, like in Charlotte, is absolutely needed right now because this is where the populations are. This is where we're concentrated. This is where we actually can talk to each other. And there's a lot of us to talk about these issues and try to move forward. Now, I talk with students all the time about climate change. They are concerned and they are overwhelmed. There's no doubt about that. And just I think like all of us are when we start to think about the issues and the scope of the problem that we're trying to deal with. Now, one thing that's universal in my experience as a teacher in atmospheric sciences and climate science is that students want to know how they can help. And my plea to you is to vote in favor of this clean energy resolution, a non-binding agreement, so that students at UNC Charlotte and in Mecklenburg County in general, and Charlotte in general, at all levels, K-12, college, all the colleges here in our county, know that our city wants to help as well. The leadership of our city wants to help as well. I want to walk into the classroom tomorrow morning and tell them that this vote is passed and that this is where the aspirational direction that Charlotte is heading. And I hope that that is true. So please vote in favor of the Clean Energy Resolution. It helps set up Charlotte to be a national leader in developing an environmentally sustainable energy system. And I will say as a professor, if you have any questions, that my expertise in atmospheric science and climate science might help you understand, anybody at all. You can find me at UNC Charlotte's website. I'm the only Brian Maggi in the university system as far as I know. Happy to talk as a scientist, as a teacher, and as a fellow citizen here of Mecklenburg County. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Reverend Peter Wary.
Good evening, members of council.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor Roberts, thank you for the opportunity to stand in favor of this resolution, this aspirational resolution. I want to say a few things, not as an expert on climate science, nor as somebody with a vested interest of my own, except to say that Manager Jones and I share the love of a city. the city of Norfolk, Virginia. Many times, as I served on the Center City Partners counterpart in Norfolk, called at that time the Downtown Norfolk Council, we made many pilgrimages to Charlotte back in the 90s to study what this phenomenal city was doing. We viewed Charlotte as our North Star in those days for growth and progressiveness, progressivity. And surely it was the truth. I am concerned about that city and love that city for the same reason that probably the residents there now love it. It is sinking. Frankly, it's not sinking. The water is rising. During rain events, there have been articles written about this nationally, that there are places in Norfolk one cannot travel when there are even minor rain events now. I stand here in support of this resolution because I believe it is a gleaming example of the intersectionality it's going to take to realize the fruit of our Opportunity Task Force study, which says, in essence, what is needed to move our city from the abysmal place we found it in terms of some statistics is not programmatic things so much as there is a need for structural and systemic change. This resolution is a study in structural and systemic change. It creates the opportunity in partnership with the phenomenal work the Urban League is doing and even Charlotte Works is doing in preparing a workforce for this new era employment. Middle and upper level jobs, the Opportunity Task Force said, it needs to be the focus of our future if we are to get out of where we've been cast. A truly remarkable city that I love now, like I have loved Norfolk and continue to love Norfolk. I ask and urge you to join together with the other communities across North Carolina and the country in supporting these aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next speaker is Reverend Dr. Rodney Sadler.
Good evening, friends. Before I say anything today, let me say thank you to Mayor Roberts. Thank you to this manifestation of the City Council. Thank you for the work that you've put in. Thank you for getting us through those dark days at the end of 2016. Your work has been appreciated, and we are grateful for all that you do. And I'm also eager to welcome the new City Council, the new mayor, and see where we'll go in the future. But I want to make sure that I acknowledge the good work that you have done. Thank you for your service. Psalm 24 says that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. This is a reminder to us that the world that we live in is not our own. It doesn't belong to us. It doesn't belong to Duke Energy, to ExxonMobil, to any other group. It belongs to God. Ultimately, what that means is that we are here to be stewards of this world. We're here to do the best that we can to make sure that we leave it better than we found it. And in part, this is what this resolution is about. How do we make sure that we leave this earth better than we found it? How do we make sure that we are reversing the current tide of rising climate temperatures by this carbon dioxide and methane that are superheating our atmosphere? How do we make sure that we leave a more sustainable planet? What we're asking for today with this 100% renewable energy resolution that puts this in place as an aspirational goal by 2050 is that we begin to make a targeted shift in the way that we produce our energy. In part, this is significant for two reasons. Number one, it's significant because this will really help us to get in front of the tidal wave that's coming in for us. This will help us to get in front of all that's happening so that we can be, as Charlotte, a model of what cities across the country can begin to do. But number two, this is also an opportunity to help us increase opportunity. This gives us an opportunity to begin to focus on green jobs, renewable energy jobs at a living wage. And if we make targeted shifts in the way that we produce our energy, we'll be able to truly lift people from poverty. This is a great opportunity. This climate emergency presents a great opportunity for us all. And I urge us to take advantage of it. I urge us to do the work that we need to do. And if we do this work, I promise you that not only will we attract green jobs and green industry, not only will we become a model for the whole country to follow, but we will be ultimately doing that which the Lord says we should be doing. I work with a group right now called Faith in Solar, and one of the things that we're trying to do is to work in partnership with Duke Energy to begin to solarize houses of faith, to say that our energy can come directly from our Creator, and we can begin to find enough power to just literally generate enough energy for us all. If we can begin to make these shifts now, if we can work together to make these shifts now, we will not only make a better Charlotte, but a better future for us all. I encourage you to pass this resolution today. God bless you all. Thank you.
Dr. Sadler. Thank you, Dr. Sadler. Next speaker is Christy Klooster.
Oh man, I missed that over. Don't run. Take your time.
Dear council members, dear staff, and dear beloved mayor, we, the volunteers from the Charlotte chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby, we have a few members here, please stand. We are retired professionals and workers. We are grandparents, parents, aunties, and uncles. We appreciate so much your reaching across the aisle to adopt a resolution calling for Charlotte to be 100% fossil fuel free by 2050. CCL, Citizens Climate Lobby, has a tool for you on the how after the aspirational aspect to help you achieve this. As you may know, current adaptation efforts of home and office building, retrofitting, transportation infrastructure, these are necessary adaptation techniques, but alone they won't be sufficient for our economic stability, environmental justice, and future habitability and our competitive edge. So we do need to go further to keep Charlotte on the move, to further protect the interests of all people and business of Charlotte from major negative impacts to our environment, health, economics, and social consciousness of climate change today. We are urging you to join other municipalities who have now decided across the nation and world to support a carbon fee and dividend policy that will reduce emissions and remain leaders of industry. Your support for national carbon fee and dividend mitigation policy will have a steadily annually rising fair carbon fee of $15 per metric ton. It will not grow government and will help you determine how best to implement your wonderful plan. So your adaptation resolution, along with support for us, if we have a state letter and a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation for you maybe before January for Environmental Committee, our national carbon fee and dividend policy is a mitigation plan. It will help save numerous Charlottean lives going forward and grow local jobs, especially, the statistics say, in healthcare, retail, and of course, clean energy, renewable energy innovation. We thank you so much for all of your efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Klooster. Our last speaker on this item is Beth Henry.
Be careful coming down the steps.
Slow down. Don't run. It's steep.
My name's Beth Henry, and I want to add my thanks and appreciation to all of you for your service to our city, especially to the folks who will be rolling off. Thank you so much for all you've given. I'm speaking in support of the resolution, and I have two main points to make. One, which my husband always tells me not to do, which is be negative, but I have to be honest about what motivates me to come and speak about this topic. But then my second point will be more positive. The first is that I have
3 children and 2 grandchildren, and I really think we all have a lot of reason, if we pay attention to the science, to be very worried about what the future holds for our children and grandchildren. And scientists basically are reticent to tell folks, you know, the possibilities of how bad things could be. But I wanted to tell y'all about a recent study from the Scripps Institute of Oceanography at UCSD, a peer-reviewed study where the scientists said we have to come up with new terms because the term dangerous is not bad enough for the things we're facing. And they've come up with 2 new terms, which are catastrophic and then existential. And this study says we have a 5% chance by 2050 of catastrophic or even existential climate change. And I wanted to read you this quote from these scientists that really got my attention because of having grandchildren. When we say 5% probability of catastrophic climate change, people may dismiss it as small, but it is equivalent to a 1 in 20 chance the plane you are about to board will crash. We would never get on that plane with a 1 in 20 chance of it coming down, but we are willing to put our children and grandchildren on that plane. So that's what we're doing. That's what 5% translates into. And as other people have said, and y'all know, we're in a position now where action on climate is going to have to be taken at a local level, if at all. So the seriousness and urgency are there, and I urge you to pay attention to the science. But the good news is the solutions are there too. The folks from 350 mentioned
Thank you, Ms.
a
Hamlin.
report, and let me just say that solar has plummeted in price, and so has battery storage. So this,
thanks very much. That's all our speakers for this item, and thank you very much for coming this evening. We appreciate your input. And Councilmember Kinsey, did you want to make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the resolution.
I second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Open to council discussion.
Actually, before we go ahead and, I know that our city attorney had something to say.
I do.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I've spoken with several of you today, and several of you have asked me what is the legal effect of this resolution. And a resolution is not a law. It's a statement of policy or commitment in this case, but part of my job is to think through unintended consequences. And I do see one potential unintended consequence that I want to bring to your attention. And a number of the speakers used the word aspirational and non-binding. The resolution is structured with a series of whereas clauses, which are like premises. They're an acknowledgement of conditions. And then the heart of a resolution is, now therefore be it resolved. And there's 2 paragraphs in this draft resolution. First one, I don't see any issues at all with. It's a commitment to a goal of 100% clean renewable energy by 2050. That's the aspirational goal that has been described by many of the speakers. But in thinking through a potential unintended consequence, there's a piece of the second paragraph that causes me a little bit of concern. It's a statement that officials and staff, that means the manager and all city employees, will consider all municipal decisions in light of whether they will bring the city and its residents closer to the goal. And my concern is we make thousands of decisions a day. And most of those decisions, I would submit, have nothing to do with the goal. I'm a little bit concerned that declaration that all decisions be made in consideration of this aspirational goal could be turned against staff and the city by some who want to say we're not doing enough, or just to criticize or look for documentation that decisions have been made in consideration of this goal. So that part causes me a little bit of concern.
Can we use different wording that says that staff will consider these goals a guideline in future decisions?
Mayor, I think there's a number of ways you could address that concern. I mean, I will just submit, in terms of what the speakers have put forward today, in terms of aspiration and non-binding, I think the first resolve paragraph gets it. So an easy way to do it is just to take the second one off the table. Otherwise, we can get into wordsmithing.
Okay. Councilor McKenzie?
I would amend my motion to delete that last paragraph.
Okay.
I second that motion. I second Ms. Kinsey's.
You agree to the amendment?
That's the amendment, yeah.
Okay. So is everybody clear? We've got all the whereases.
Yes.
This is not up on the screen. So the last paragraph, just for those who don't have it in front of you, is now therefore be it resolved, the City of Charlotte should commit to a goal of 100% clean renewable energy for all energy sectors by 2050 and move as quickly as possible to achieve that goal. And then it would end there and not get into the detail of how staff will use that as a guideline for future decision-making, because it's pretty clear in that aspiration. Okay, everybody's clear on that. Councilmember Driggs.
This is a difficult one for me because I don't like the resolution, and it doesn't mean that I'm not supportive of the goal of clean energy. We haven't had a single dinner briefing to talk about what sort of commitment the city would need to make in order to move us closer to these goals. We've had no analysis. And when President Kennedy went up and announced that he wanted to put a man on the moon, I don't think he just got up in the morning and walked up to a microphone. I think there was some work in the background. I think we owe it to the supporters of renewable energy to give more substance to a resolution like this by doing a little more research about what it really is. This is a feel-good statement, and then we can go off and forget about it. But the truth is that we have not had, on council, to my knowledge, any in-depth conversations about what actions we might need to take, what investments we might need to be prepared to make. So it's very nice to call it aspirational, but are you thereby saying, don't worry about it? We don't really mean it. It doesn't signify anything. For it to signify something, it just requires, in my mind, a little bit more by the way of, I mean, again, not even just in the context of this particular resolution, I haven't heard conversations on council about the whole subject. We did have one about the buildings. We talked about wanting our buildings to be green. But in terms of what it means in practice to put this goal out there, we don't know, for example, what the current status is of our renewable energy use. So I think it would be more respectful to the environmental community and much more significant as an action on our part to come up with a resolution that is backed by a little more research and a better understanding of exactly what we intend to do in the near term in order to move us towards this goal. On that basis, and not because I don't believe in a clean environment or renewable energy, I'm not going to support this resolution.
Councilmember Eisel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I take this very seriously. I believe in climate change. I believe that renewable energy and clean energy is actually an area that can create jobs and create a whole industry at all sorts of different skill levels. So I think it's an incredible opportunity for our city. But because of that, I share your concerns. It's the first we've heard of this. I am trying to get more into the area. In fact, we just returned from a trip to Europe for sustainability. I understand that our director of sustainability our sustainability group hasn't really been involved in what this means and how we would get there. And that bothers me, that we have a sustainability group and we haven't heard from them as how we would become a sustainable, clean energy city. And I'd like to take it more seriously and say, what's the blueprint? What do we need to do to get there? I recently had a conversation with Microsoft because they've gone 100% clean energy. Yep. And I said, how do you do that? How do you even do that, especially when you're in a city where Duke Energy kind of controls what happens on the grid, well, completely controls what happens on the grid. And they trade energy. They buy and sell energy on the grid. I don't know if we can do that as a municipality. And so I think it's more complicated than that. And I'm just afraid that if we pass this now, we lose the opportunity to really say, let's get serious about this and figure out how we get there and have the conversation.
Okay, let's be respectful. Let's be respectful. We had our public input, and we're having our conversation here, and we know the passions are there, and we've got more comments. Councilmember Ajmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This was actually brought up in our Environment Committee, I think about 2 weeks ago, under our Councilwoman Ms. Kinsey's leadership. I think there are lots of what and how. I think we can discuss that all day long, but I think the overarching goal is to actually commit to having Charlotte a sustainable place to live and raise a family. And I think this is the first step that we have to take in the right direction, where it shows our commitment and our leadership in being 100% sustainable place and 100% clean energy. And I think there are we owe it to our residents, our children, our grandchildren, and great-grandchildren that, look, this is a step that our council took to make Charlotte a good place to live and sustainable place. Until we do this, and until we set a goal, we are never going to work out all the details. We can talk about all day how we are going to get there, Guess what? On the first day, we're not going to know every single detail, just like we had with tree canopy. So I think tree canopy was also a very aspirational goal. But we actually had committed to that, and we had put resources. So this is the first step that I think we have to take in order to go 100% clean energy. There is a great proverb from Native American community. It says, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And I think this is something we owe it to our next generation. And I think I'm in full support of this resolution, and I think we should pass that and eventually work with our Environment Committee to take concrete steps as to how we can attain it. Because until we talk, we can talk about it all day today, okay, how we are going to get there, but until we have a goal, we are not going to get there.
I don't see any hands over here, so I want to add a few comments. Oh, I'm sorry. I did see a hand. Councilmember Phipps.
Thank you, Mayor. I too, when I saw this, I was surprised by it in as much as it did not seem to provide enough detail in my mind for a decision such as this. Now, I've had the opportunity, I've been to China, I've seen firsthand what they can do with renewable energy and just how serious they are. I think they are ahead of us, really, as a country in terms of developing renewable energy and resources and solar and wind and such as that. So I'm a firm believer in it. But what I don't see is, where are we now with our renewable and sustainable energy program? To say in 32 years that we're going to reach this goal, what I'm looking for is, what are the incremental steps for us getting there? How do we measure it? And the speakers mentioned that there's going to be other resolutions that they want to come before us, but when are we going to get the information to see how do we implement this, unless we're just saying that it's an aspirational goal that one day, but I guess the time horizon has been set that, when we're going to get there, which is 32 years from now. So I don't know what it all means in terms of our current structure. How do we transition from our, what we put in our cars now? I mean, where do we go? What is the timeline of how we're supposed to get to this, unless we're basically saying that this is a non-binding agreement, resolution, that we'll just figure it out as we go along, that nobody is really serious about the 32 years from now? Or I'm confused as to, one thing I was confused is how it got out of committee when it didn't receive the appropriate votes to get out of committee. I mean, that was one thing that threw me off. But I'm for renewable energy. I think there's a lot of opportunities there for jobs and sustainability, but what steps are we going to get to incrementally to get to the 100%, and what it would mean for our business, our economy, and what our normal way of life is right now? That's what I don't see in the documentation for this presentation.
Councilmember Fallon.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a little allegorical story. When I first came on, that's 6 years ago, I was vice chair of environmental. I brought to them that, and if Rob is here, I think he could remember, the ash ponds, and I warned everybody that they were going to be a problem. And I was told I didn't follow the process. It had to go to us first and council, and we wouldn't vote on it, all right? 6 years later, Duke is trying to stick us all paying for it when I warned and no one wanted to listen. Do you remember, James? I was put down by the deputy city manager and the chair of the environmental committee, who sits in Raleigh now. All right? It was a warning because I knew it was polluting the earth and killing the water table, and I was right, all right? But no one wanted to listen. This has to go back to committee so that the whole council can be informed properly, so then they can vote on what they understand and then take it from aspirational to giving us goals.
So, okay, Councilor Isel.
I'd like to make a substitute motion that committee brings it back to us with a plan. It can be very high level, but a plan that says here's the next steps, because I agree with you. It was 2-2 in environmental committee. Why didn't the council hear this, and why didn't it get out of committee? It was 2-2. Yeah, but it was 2-2. So
okay, because Councilmember Mitchell, who was not there,
I wasn't present.
said that you'd be supportive.
Right.
He said he would be supportive, and I was there, and I agreed with the chair to send it to the full council.
Yeah, but
so I was at the meeting as well.
Okay.
So that's the.
I guess I'd love to know what was discussed, and for that reason, I'd like to have a motion to say let's come back with an actual plan, even if it's 30,000-foot level. Because I think it's too serious to just let drop or forget about for a couple dozen years.
Okay, there's a substitute motion to send it, you're saying it back to the committee again?
To come back with a plan for council to say these are the next steps. Here's a little bit of background about what we can do and what we can't do. I have no idea what we can and can't do.
Okay,
with input from our sustainability department.
Okay, I'd like to speak to the first motion unless, well, is there a second to the substitute?
Second.
Okay. So I will speak to the second and the first motion. I think it's clear how it did follow the process and how it went to the Environment Committee and got on the agenda, and people had a chance to look at that resolution. I'm glad we are looking at the
This isn't new.
the first ending and taking out that second paragraph that was maybe not worded as well as it could have been. I've been working in the environmental field for over 2 decades. And one thing I've seen is that when you do set goals, much like the Paris Accords, much like other countries who are ahead of us in setting goals, you actually lead the private sector. And when you make a bold step and set a goal, just like we want to be a walkable, livable community, that's a goal. Do we have every single sidewalk planned out to be a walkable? Do we have every single bike path planned out? No. But we know we're making steps and progress. In the same way, we know we're making steps and progress in cleaning our air and reducing our reliance. I'll give you a few steps of things this council has talked about, has voted on, has done for years. We have hybrid vehicles. We have hybrid buses. The MTC voted on that when I was on the county commission, like a decade ago. We have electric vehicles. We just added 160 electric vehicle charging stations. We all voted on that.
Right.
We've talked about North End Smart District. We have a solar array there, and we're going to be adding, we're talking about a microgrid, again, powered by solar array. That's all on part of our city plan to make the North End Smart District relying on smart city technology, which is energy efficient. We also started Envision Charlotte, again, 2009. I was on the county commission, and Anthony Fox and I stood with Jim Rogers, and we started a plan that's been copied around the world by cities and countries to reduce energy usage, to reduce water usage. And you talked about that when you were over in Europe. We sent 4 people to Europe 2 weeks ago to look at the circular economy. That's all about energy reduction, energy efficiency, trying to reach a goal of reducing climate change in every way possible. And all these environmental goals go hand in hand with renewable energy, with clean energy. We have adopted LEED certification on any new building. That involves reducing HVAC electric usage, reducing energy usage, working toward clean energy solutions. I could go on, but these are all things that have been voted on, that have been discussed in public, that have been supported by wonderful groups like the Sierra Club, like the Citizens for Climate Change, the Mayors for 100% Clean Energy, the Mayors Against Climate Change supporting that. These are movements that have been going on around the country. Orlando has a goal for its city to be 100% clean energy by 2030. That's where Disney World is. Think of electricity they use. And to have, that's the city operations, and then to have the whole city by 2050. Salt Lake City, San Diego, Columbia has its goal 2036. Our neighbor to the south, Columbia, South Carolina. St. Louis by 2035. The state of Hawaii by 2045. Of course, they have a lot of sun. We also have so many of our neighbors in North Carolina have already adopted this. Hillsborough, Carrboro, you heard them earlier. And there are cities who currently claim they are already on 100% clean energy, including Burlington, Vermont, people have read about that, Aspen, Colorado, Rockport, Missouri. So again, these items have been talked about. We know we want to be environmentally sustainable. We know that we are a leader in clean water. We know that we want to be a leader in clean air. Our city and county have been working on this for years. This is the logical next step. And we know that Duke Energy is continuing to build its solar arrays. We know that they're competing. We know that we're looking at wind and thermal. We know they have hydro. And we know it is achievable. We do not have all the steps. We do not have all the steps for a lot of things that we set as a vision and a goal for our city. It is my hope that this council will think about the leadership that Charlotte provides in our state, in our country. And we just saw that with the National League of Cities. We had several of the discussions around climate change, around what cities are doing. Coastal cities are very concerned about climate change, and they're very eager to have more inland cities join them in taking up the standard of doing what's right for our future and our kids. We can follow this with a climate action plan. You heard the speaker talk about that. You set the goal, you follow that with a climate action plan, which is the steps you're talking about, going back to committee to work with Rob Focus, work with our sustainability folks who've been working, to work with Envision, to work with bring in someone from Duke Energy, look at the actionable steps where we can measure our progress. That's a climate action plan. But right now, what is my hope this council will do, because I'm pretty sure the next council will definitely do it, but it would be nice to have this one do it, is to set that goal and to say we're going to stand with our cities. So, Councilmember Phipps.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I agree with a lot of the things you said. It looks like to me they were incremental steps that we're taking towards a goal. But what I would want to know is there anyone on the staff could tell us briefly where we are now, right now, in terms of our sustainability efforts? Are we at 10%, 40% towards our 100% goal, or where are we, and what would it mean for us to get there?
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm Rob Focus, the Sustainability Director for the city. Mr. Phipps, I don't have exact numbers for you. What I can tell you on the city operations side, we do have solar arrays, we do have renewable energy that we're using. A lot of that is put back on the grid sold to Duke as opposed to used for our own facilities as a small percentage. And when you look at the energy mix, where do we get all our energy sources? Where's Duke getting the energy from? The leading sources are still nuclear and coal. Natural gas has been making an increase over the years, but renewables are a smaller percentage of that. So I don't have the exact numbers for you, but I could get those.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Focus?
Rob, how difficult would it be to give us, if we pass this or talk about it, goals, and how set goals that we could get to? 5-year increments, 10-year increments, 15-year increments?
I think we could do that, Council Member. This is an effort that would not be undertaken just by staff. It's going to involve working very closely with Duke Energy because they are our energy provider. One of the unknowns right now is a recent law that was passed by the General Assembly that impacts renewable energy, and those regulations haven't come out yet. So I think like a lot of cities and corporations, as Ms. Eisel mentioned, they are working with their staff, they're working with consultants to figure out what those plans look like. And putting together a timeline and putting together costs
And
as
a
well.
priority list.
Correct.
What should be first, what should be second. I would go with it if we had something like that as an addendum.
Councilor Driggs.
I just wanted to say you mentioned that several cities have adopted plans, and they involve the year 2035, the year 2045, et cetera. And that goes to my point. I'm pretty certain that those cities arrived at those years through a thoughtful process. I'm pretty sure they didn't come up with the number 2035 or 45 in this last-minute kind of knee-jerk fashion. They put some work into this thing, and they decided exactly how to articulate what their goals are, what their aspirations are, and they gave themselves a little time in order to give it some meaning and some substance. And my problem with this is, as presented in this fashion, and without the benefit of any preparation or a dinner briefing or any input from you before now, this is the first time I've heard you talk about this. And I'm just saying I think this should be done in a way that is supported by a little more research and a little more responsibility so that the people that you're handing this to as you leave aren't saddled with something that they can't deliver on to the people in the audience here. This is a serious subject. This is not something we do as a little gesture so that you guys will feel happy on the last day of council. This has not been worked on the way it should be. There's plenty of time for us to do that work, subsequently send it back to committee. And I'm not saying we shouldn't establish a goal like this for ourselves. I'm just saying the problem is that we pass this thing and we say, look what we did, look what we did. We haven't done anything yet.
Okay, Council.
This does not constitute anything by itself.
Councilmember Ajmer and Councilor Driggs, your characterization is really not fair.
Well,
Because
again,
I'm not jumping around. We're not jumping around and going,
Where
"Oh, look
was
at us,
this
aren't we
before
cool?"
now? I
No, I'm
didn't
just
hear
saying.
about this.
I'm just saying that it really is not fair. Councilor Ajmer.
Again, I think we are talking a lot about how. This is an opening commitment that would be followed up with additional steps from Environment Committee, and this is a beginning, not an end. And on the first day, we cannot have an entire plan laid out. It's like putting cart before horse. I think we need to work out the plan and specific details with our staff and our nonprofit partners and other partners and other government agencies. But we need to commit to this. We need to show leadership, and we need to actually show that we are serious about this. And the way we show that we are serious about it is by committing to this. So I guess we can take a vote on it now.
We got Councilmember Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm trying to understand how this conversation is dissolving quickly around a resolution which it clearly states that the Clean Energy Resolution is a non-binding resolution in which the City of Charlotte resolves that the city should commit a goal of 100% clean energy for all energy sectors by 2050. We are in 2017. The Environmental Committee had conversations. You have 5 members on the committee. Unlike the conversation for the item that I pulled out earlier where I asked, hey, where was the conversation around this? Mm-hmm. There were conversations around this, and this isn't new. As my colleague, Ms. Fallon said, and there are plenty of times throughout the years where we have been on opposite sides of this conversation on so many issues. But this one, When she first shared her concerns regarding our environment many years ago when we both came in 2011, the conversation started then. So this isn't a new conversation that was held in the Environment Committee. This is a conversation that has been happening repeatedly over at least 6.5 years that I have sat around this table, not being on the Environment Committee. But the committee had these long, detailed conversations. I'm not understanding why we have gotten to the point where we've spent 15 plus minutes discussing this resolution when, if we agree that as a city, we want to continue to be welcoming, we want to continue to be environmentally sound. We are Tree City for a reason. We have made environmental control impacts and made decisions through our policy that has helped with development. You look at my district and you look at the River District and you look at what is happening because of the development of the Charlotte Premium Outlet and the environmental controls that we put in place to try to protect our water. We need to protect our air. We know that there is so much damage we are creating to the environment. I am not understanding why we are having this long conversation about doing the right thing. At some point, you have to make a stand on something. So the idea of saying, no, I am not going to support it going back to the committee. The committee has had a conversation. This committee has discussed it. And there's a challenge when any of us say, well, it's political related. Why is it political related when we're talking about protecting the environment when there are so many other decisions that we make that are clearly politically related? We got to figure out, if this is clearly stating this is a non-binding resolution, this is an aspiration. We took out the final paragraph because our city attorney said he had a challenge with that and felt like he would not necessarily be able to defend that. I respect that, but if we are going to move our city forward, I don't see why there is a challenge for us to say, hey, we actually care enough about the environment that we want to protect it for those fifth graders that we want to teach about water and the seniors that we're here tonight. So I, as much as I fuss and as much as I challenge us just co-signing off on things, I am in support of this because we need to figure out how to make a clear decision on what is going to move our city forward, because I'm not sitting here for 25 years and hope it works out right. We are making decisions based on the best information that we have, but if we don't make some clear commitments now while we have the ability to do it, we cannot wait for future council to get caught up for you to learn and try to figure out if you want to do this. We need to make that commitment now. So I am in support of us moving forward with this resolution this evening.
Okay, let's vote.
Let's vote. You can't go with Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I want to say a couple of things. One is I appreciate everybody coming down tonight. You're a very passionate crowd, and you've been here a long time, so I appreciate that. It is maybe non-binding in nature. It is going to be held up as a benchmark. It is going to be held up as a vote and a resolution that this body took to achieve a goal. I voted for a handful of environmental measures when we were on the committee, one with the compressed gas motors for vehicles, LED lights, things in which I could say, all right, we're going to help the environment, we're going to reduce our costs over the long run, but there was a measure and a metric in place that I could come out and I could take the data and arrive at a conclusion that worked for the city from a budget standpoint and worked for the environment, all of which I supported. My problem with this is we don't know who our private sector partners are. We don't know what technology will be made available. We don't know what cost of those technologies will be made available. We don't know the possibility of actually doing a lot of this stuff. And I think that's the kind of background information I would want to make a commitment like this, because I guarantee you the passions and energy that has come here tonight is not going to go away because it's non-binding. You're going to be held accountable for this vote. I'm not going to be here, but those of you that are going to be here, you're going to be held accountable that you make the measures to get there. They're going to say you voted to support this. Now it's the time for the action. We don't know the cost. We don't know if we can even get there. We heard things from other resolutions that are going to come down. And for me, I think it needs more study than this. I think we need more of ability of an action plan from from Rob. And so I'm not going to support it. I'd be willing to send it back to committee. If my options are vote for it or send it back to committee, I'm going to vote against the measure. If my options are to vote to send it back to committee, then I'll vote to send it back to committee and let future environmental chairs and Rob put some thinking into this. Let it come through our process. Let it go through a dinner briefing, and let everybody make an educated decision.
Excuse me.
Any other comments?
Yes, I have one.
Okay, I think Councilor Phipps.
Yeah. So in this resolution, is this just concerning what the city of Charlotte is going to do? Because I don't think that we could do this by ourselves. So have we even talked to the county about their input? And are they adopted a resolution similar to this, that they're going to help us achieve this goal? Or this is a unilateral goal that we are seeking right now?
The implication is the city starts with the city, what the city can control, and then works with our partners to go beyond.
Okay, so,
Call upon join with other cities that have already committed to this, to work with them, to continue to focus on renewable energy.
Go ahead.
Is that fair, Councilor Kinsey?
That's fair. May I just say one
Councilor
more
Kinsey.
quick thing, because it's interesting listening, and I know that, so I think I know where it's headed. But I just have a very short picture, and I think we all got this earlier on, of what the Environment Committee has done just in 1 year. And
I don't have that.
well,
You
this,
weren't there.
I think it was, it was probably, anyway,
Everybody copy.
we've been working toward a sustainable city for years. I remember when we actually started the Environment Committee. James and I do. And everything, already everything that we do, the environment just surrounds everything that we do. And it just doesn't, and there are a lot of things that happen that they get started and then they finally grow. I mean, we started with one, and we didn't, although I was involved with it, with one little section of the Sugar Creek Greenway. And now, because the city has joined with the county, we're going to have it. But we didn't have that. I mean, it was an aspiration to have it, but we didn't have it. I remember when I was on county commission a long time ago, we talked about we need to set aside property for a light rail. We didn't have a light rail. There was no money for a light rail, but the city and the county were talking about that. So I think if we don't say this is our goal, we can always come back and say this is how we're gonna reach it. But I'll be disappointed if this is not adopted by this council, but I think it will be adopted eventually.
Did Julie's motion get a second?
Okay, I think the motion before us is to send it back to committee. Is that correct, Mr. Moore? Okay.
It was.
So yes, it got a second.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure.
I can't remember. I think Ed seconded it. Okay, so all in favor of sending sending this resolution back to the committee for further fleshing out of the path that it would take? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5.
Lyles? No, Vi's here now.
So it goes back. Oh, Vi's here.
Vi's here.
You got to vote.
Okay, let's see if she votes.
Nice try, Kenny.
So the motion before us, we're considering the clean energy resolution.
I heard part of the discussion, Mayor, and I haven't heard it all. And so I've got a copy, and the staff has given me, that says the last paragraph has been taken out.
Correct.
So I can support this motion, but I cannot support the section that says for all energy sectors by 2050. I don't know what that means, actually. And so what I agree with is that we should, for the city to commit for a goal of 100% clean and renewable energy by 2050 and move as quickly. But I don't know what all energy sectors means. And so I need an explanation of what that is.
Mr. Focus, do you want to explain that since this is your draft.
Good evening again. All energy sectors, my understanding here is that it is focused primarily on the electricity that we're using, the power we're using to focus on to power the buildings. There are some cities, however, who have broadened that to include transportation sector as well. So it is broad here. I think that's a good point that Mayor Pro Tem has made as well.
I have to say, in response to that, that's what bothers me. I don't know what it means. And when we say, I understand the resolution and I understand the whereases, but the wording for all energy sectors, does it mean all of our sectors, all of what we do, who does? I'm struggling with the languaging in this resolution. And if we don't know if it's broad or us, then it's very difficult to say, well, what does it mean? So I'm trying to say, well, okay, now therefore it be resolved that the City of Charlotte should commit to a goal of 100% clean renewable energy by 2050 and move quickly. But if it means that we're going to do that for our organization, and if you can't tell me which it is, then that's a concern for me. So I don't know whether you guys discussed that in environmental committee or not.
Sending it back to committee.
No. That's the vote. The vote is the motion.
So I'm asking what this means, though. That's what I'm voting on.
Councilman McKenzie.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know exactly what it means either, except that this is only for the city. However, since we don't know, I am perfectly willing to amend my motion again to delete that portion, that for all energy sectors. Because I'm fine with that. We can come back and deal with that later once we get into this.
Okay, so the original motion is amended to take out that phrase. The City of Charlotte is capitalized, and so my understanding is that this is just for the city operations, but certainly the aspiration and hope is that it would extend through our partnerships to include the entire city. We can't commit the entire city. We can commit the City of Charlotte operations. And so this is the first step. We may come up with a climate action plan that includes joining more partners and using Envision to spread more renewables, more energy conservation, et cetera. But for right now, with the way this is written, it's just for city operations.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we've got the amendment, but we still have, we are in the middle of a vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem, on whether to send this back. It's already been to the Environment Committee, but there was a person missing, so the substitute motion was to send it back to the Environment Committee and talk about it some more before coming back again to the full council. If that does not pass, then we go to the original motion, which has two amendments now, and we vote on that.
So I can tell this is a very awkward situation for me to come in, not hearing everyone, but I'm going to say this. Many of the people in this audience are really good friends of mine, and they've talked with me a number of ways and different times about this idea of how do we get here. I am the kind of person that when I look at these things, I take them very seriously. And it's not something as a resolution that I'm going to be able to just say, well, I can do it and we can come back to it later. And when we talk about the goal of 100% clean renewable energy, and the person that actually wrote this and put it on our agenda says, but we don't know what that word for all energy sectors means, and the motion includes that right now? Is that my understanding?
No, there is a substitute.
They amended that.
Okay, let me ask the attorney, what is the motion? Because I thought there was a motion, there was a vote, and it included it as is.
So here is my interpretation of where we are procedurally.
Okay.
The original motion was for the resolution as proposed. The maker of the motion amended her motion to take out the last paragraph, and that was seconded. Before you now is a substitute motion to refer it to committee. The maker of the motion has indicated a willingness to accept a friendly amendment, But that can't procedurally be done until you dispose of the amendment, of the motion that's on the table, which is to refer to committee. So there's a willingness to accept a friendly amendment. That technically hasn't happened yet because the main motion is not before you. The substitute motion to refer to committee is before you.
And the friendly amendment is the one that you added, was to take out for all energy sectors.
All right, what am I voting on, Bob?
Right
I'm
now
sorry,
before
Mr.
you is
Hagan.
the substitute motion to refer it to committee.
To refer it back to committee. So you are, yeah, there have been 5 votes to refer it back to committee.
I think.
So you would be the deciding vote.
What is the title?
That's why we were waiting, when we saw you coming back, we waited to see if you also wanted to refer it back, even though it's been there, because there was a person missing, although it will be a new council.
And then if I vote and it passes to go to committee, what's the next motion?
That's
The
it.
motion goes back
That's
to
it.
That's it.
And if I vote not to do that, what am I voting on next?
If the motion to refer to committee does not pass, then the main motion is on the floor, and there has been conversation about the maker of the motion being open to a friendly amendment. That would have to be
That would incorporate.
handled and incorporated, and then you would have a motion before you on the original motion as amended.
And that, so the last paragraph would read, now therefore be it resolved, the city of Charlotte should commit to a goal of 100% clean, renewable energy by 2050 and move as quickly as possible to achieve that goal. And it would end there.
Julie's motion
Councilor
included going, it wasn't merely to go back to committee because there weren't people there. It included going back and creating an action plan and coming up with an actual plan that we think we can achieve. That was my interpretation of the substitute motion. It was not simply to go back because it's a 2-2 tie.
May I make a comment?
Correct.
I
Councilor Isel.
I'm sorry. Rob, are you involved in the way that this was worded, this resolution?
Yes.
Okay. So if it goes back to committee, do you feel that it's possible to, even aspirational, to put some kind of a high-level plan in place? Because that, that is sort of the point of making that substitute motion. And if you feel differently, then I'd want to.
No, I believe we can do that. I also think we can, working with the committee members, address some of the concerns around the language like the Mayor Pro Tem has voiced tonight.
Councilor Driggs.
I just want to point out, when we say this has been to committee, okay, the committee met. We were presented with this document. We did not receive any kind of a briefing from staff. We read the document. There was a discussion that resulted in a split vote of 2-2. I don't call that due process. I don't feel that you can say this has been vetted by the committee. The committee looked at it, and some of the concerns we're discussing tonight were raised, but it hasn't had the benefit of any briefing or staff input on what it is that we should do and how we make this mean something, how we give it substance. And what I don't get is, why didn't this come up a month ago, or why can't we do it in a couple of weeks? Why tonight? And if you don't like the tone of my suggestion about, I feel that the only significance of tonight is we have a last-minute opportunity to pass this thing, and I don't see why we should have to do it under the gun like this. Why couldn't this have come up a month ago or 6 months ago?
Councilor Marjmera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mayor Pro Tem, the plan, the next steps can also be done after we pass the resolution, and especially removing that for all energy verbiage. So that would be a subsequent next step if we were to move forward with this resolution. And I think Ms. Mayfield had mentioned several times in her comments about how this has been a continuing discussion before even I got on council. So I think this is not something that's just we decided to do it out of blue at the last committee meeting.
Councilor Fallon.
Yeah, this is the prototype of what we've always complained about. Things brought to us at the last minute and we're pushed. All right? There's no discussion till we get here, but there are ramifications of everything we do.
I thought you were
No, I'm not supportive without a goal. I will not vote for something that doesn't give me priorities and vote goals.
Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Phipps.
Yeah, and looking at the title of this resolution, it says that the resolution of the City of Charlotte City Council in support of a state and national goal of 100% clean energy by 2050 or sooner and the creation of green jobs. Now, is this in support, is there a state or national goal of 100% clean energy?
Yes.
There is actually.
It is?
Yes.
I haven't seen it. That should have been a part of this. Because
Well-
maybe they would have more of a description of what we are attempting to do here. I don't.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So I do think that that is a good question, Mr. Phipps. Is there, in support of a state and national goal, our state and our country has a national goal? Is that, Mr. Focus, is that correct?
I'm not aware of the federal administration having a 100% renewable energy goal. My understanding of this is that there are cities and states, as the mayor mentioned earlier, who have made this commitment, and that the city, by passing this resolution, would be joining a movement that is occurring across states and at the federal level across states and cities.
So before I left the meeting, I'm sorry, I had another meeting within a meeting. Before I left the meeting, basically what I had said to the folks that had put this proposition forward is that I did feel like the resolution was confusing and not understandable and not fully defined. And I asked the question of Mr. I didn't want to say Terry, I wanted to say Mr. Lansdell, if there was a possibility that we could have something that would work and that would actually have some goals in it that would make a difference. And this is really difficult for me to step in. I haven't heard all of the conversation. I know what aspirational means, but the resolution in front of me isn't aspirational. It says the City of Charlotte should commit to a goal. It doesn't say will attempt, aspires to, or any of that. I'm really still struggling with that statement, thou therefore be it resolved. I am not questioning this council's commitment to the environment. I'm not questioning when we started or how we've gotten here either. But I wonder if really what we're saying is, and I'm not a should and could and shall person. I'm sure Mr. Hageman could help me with this. But I think one of the things we have to be really clear on is what are we trying to do? So I'd much rather the statements read differently, and if it takes going back to committee, I think that's important to do. Because I'm trying to say, now therefore it be resolved that the City of Charlotte aspires to commit to a goal of 100% clean, renewable energy by 2050, and will move as quickly as possible to achieve that goal. And that's what I could live with this resolution.
Could you read that again? I will amend whatever you want.
Yes, anything to get out of here.
No, I need to go to the ladies' room pretty badly.
We won't vote.
Okay.
We'll still be talking, Patsy. We still have to vote.
If there is an agreement on that, I feel very strongly that, and I've said this many, many times, this council's work is so important to this community. We should be clear and able to explain what we're trying to accomplish. And the words should follow the voices that are being spoken, and I don't think that these words do. So what I'd like to see is, and I'm sorry I came back in, but this is not going to be, I think, what we've been talking about around the dais to do. It isn't aspirational. It says we should commit, and that concerns me. So I would rather it be right than fast.
So does that mean you're voting to send it back to committee with the other five?
Right. I know, no pressure. Did you say that, Ms. Jade? I heard you say that. Thank you very much.
Commit. Okay, well, excuse me. We're not having a conversation. We had our public input, and we are.
If it's aspirational,
Doesn't say so.
It does not say aspirational.
It needs more work.
Okay, so what the decision here is do we send it back to the committee to get more information and more, well, not just rewording, it sounds like we also want to get some steps toward what it would look like to do that, and some backup, some additional information. Do we send it back to committee, or do we find wording that one more change might be acceptable to those here, which recognizes it's aspirational, but it puts a pin in the ground and says, this is where we're heading, and we all agree that that's where we should be heading.
Mayor, let me be more clear. I'm just going to say this. I am going to vote not to support this, and I'm going to tell you why. And I know that there's going to be repercussions and there's going to be conversations, but I'm going to say this because it says a resolution of the City Council in support of state and national goal. We know there's no national goal. So that's, just walk me through this. No national goal. When it says should commit instead of aspires to accomplish, where it says all energy sectors, it's just the wording isn't right. The commitment of what we're trying to do is right. And if it's just as simple to say all of these things, whereas that the city should commit to the goal or aspire to the goal of 120% or 100 clean percent, but the document as we have presented before us tonight is not as clearly stated as what the words around this dais have said. And sometimes you have to take a stand that's not popular. I hope that no one in this audience will see that anybody around the dais is doing any more than trying to do the right thing and do it in a right way. Everyone that supports it, as well as trying to get it right, is trying to do the right thing. And you don't do it at 10 of 10 with a pencil being marked and struck through without staff working through it. I commit that we should come back, we should do it right, and we should do it soon. So I will support the motion that moves it to committee.
Okay. So that's 6 votes to move it back to committee and to reword it and to get more fleshing out of the steps that might be entailed in working toward that goal. Do I need to have all those against raise your hand?
Yeah, you probably should.
All right.
That debate, it might be a good idea.
Okay. All those against sending it back to committee, raise your hand.
All what?
Against sending it back.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 6-5. It goes back to committee, and we will look forward to the next council passing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
Councilor
clarification. Can we put, I don't know if it would be an amendment or a caveat on there that if it goes back to committee, it's going to new committee, that we have a time limit, a turnaround time limit on it, so it doesn't get lost, so that we spend at the end of 18 months, we having this conversation again, is, so really, I think that's a question. Bob, is that doing another amendment, or is that just letting it be known for the city manager that we want a time limit on it?
So the maker of the motion to send to committee was Ms. Eiselt.
Okay.
Your rules, this is a very seldom, if ever, used rule. There is a rule in your rules of procedure that allows the maker of a motion to send an item to committee to request after 60 days through a motion to bring it back to the council. So the idea behind that rule is when something gets sent to committee, you give them at least 60 days to work on it.
Okay, then it comes
But then the maker of the motion to send it to committee can, in front of the council, make a motion to take it back. So the idea is the committee should not be just sitting on it to kill it if the full council wants some kind of action.
Gotcha.
So how does she make that,
Not now, she has to wait 60 days.
But here's the thing, we're at a point where we don't know who is going to be on what committee. Because we're going to have all new committee assignments. We don't know who is going to be in charge. So is there a way for us to protect the motion by saying the expectation is that the committee brings it back within 60 days? So that it's not the maker of the motion, because the maker may or may not be in that role.
So is that a second motion, Mr. Attorney?
I don't think you need a motion.
Okay.
I think I need it.
The reason I asked who made the motion is I wanted to know if the maker of the motion is going to be on the council
Right.
after December 4th.
So, yes.
And the maker's motion is going to be on council, so there is a vehicle after 60 days through your rules to bring it back, even if the council has not made a decision. Now, it doesn't mean you have to bring it back after 60. It protects the committee for at least 60 days to give them a chance to work on it.
But she's
that's not
asking the
answering-
opposite question.
Yes,
She's
that's
asking,
not
can
answering
you,
my
can you require it to be looked at and discussed under a certain amount of time?
And bring it back.
I can't think of any precedent for that.
No.
It doesn't mean you can't do it. I cannot think of any precedent for that.
I just wanted, just for clarification, Mayor, I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing in place to say that it can't be done. Because we, again, are going to be bringing on new members. I don't want this getting lost in translation. If we go ahead and state tonight that 60 days, it should be brought back, so give it time to get to the committee, go through the process, and we put a limit on it now. That way, we don't have to worry about trying to remember that we want to have this conversation again.
I think you could do it. I can't think of any precedent. I think you can do it. I'd caution you a little bit to be thoughtful, because typically when there's a changeover in council, it takes a period of time to get committees appointed and for them to gear up. And I'd be careful to not put such a tight time frame. They don't have a chance to meaningfully work on it. But
Oh,
that's
it's
your
okay.
call.
It happens to all of us. That's your downfall of a 2-year term. They'll catch up. So if that's agreeable for the council to put 60 days, that should be enough time to get the information together. That shouldn't be a problem. All council members are gonna have a window in which you have to play catch up. That's having a 2-year cycle.
I will agree to a time period. I'm not agreeing to 60 days.
Well, you're gonna be gone.
And the
anyway.
community-
In order to get it off of this dais, you either need unanimous consent. I mean, you can't just. So, I
Well,
mean,
no, it's already off. It's already gone to committee. I'm just asking us to put a timeline on it so that it just doesn't linger there.
Mr. Hageman?
Again, I'm thinking this through, having not had to do this before. If you make a motion requiring the committee to report back within 60 days, and they don't do that,
Then that's staff doing their job.
you're in the same position as your rules, which allows the maker of the motion to refer to have the full council take it back. I think a request by this body that the committee report back within 60 days is fine. I don't know how you bind them to take action.
Right.
And you have a vehicle to pull it back to the full body if you want to do so.
So the commitment is 60 days.
Somebody to bring this back.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I think that I clearly understand the urgency of this, and I don't think we have to worry about the 60 days. I think the city manager understands clearly the urgency of this. And for the committees, if we are open to the idea that there are priorities in life, we can make one. So I would say that I think that we've all understood that. And I don't know that any action would be required if we know this is important. And it obviously is, because we very seldom have 6-5 votes on this council.
Right.
So I got that part.
And we have the community here also to hold the feet to the fire and remind us.
That's right.
Absolutely. Thank you all for a good discussion. We have more items of business to take care of tonight. So our next item is number 12, Minority and Women Business Enterprise Disparity Study Adoption. And this is, this comes out of the Economic Development Committee recommendation to adopt the City of Charlotte Minority Women Business Enterprise Disparity Study Report and to amend it to extend race-conscious and gender-conscious measures through 2023. So we can look far ahead. Councilor Mitchell?
Mayor, I got a lot of speaking points, but light of 10 o'clock is approaching us. So I'm going to first thank my committee who we received the BBC report, and then we did a dinner briefing as well. This program, I think, is very important. I know we have 3 speakers, Mayor, so I don't know if you want the speakers to go first, or you'd like for me to go ahead and make the motion. Which one?
Well, you can go ahead and make the motion, and then we'll have the speakers.
Okay. So I'll make a motion. We approve actions A and B on the Minority Women Business Enterprise to Disparity Study Adoption.
Okay, so motion is second. And we have 3 speakers who hopefully are still here. Vilma Betancourt O'Day.
Come on, Vilma. Navajo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vilma Betancourt O'Day, and I am Public Policy Director for the National Association of Women Business Owners in Charlotte. I am also a member of the Disparity Study Advisory Committee, and I am on Councilman Mitchell's Charlotte Business Inclusion Advisory Committee as well. And I am speaking today on my own behalf, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the advisory committees that I participate in or of NABO. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I would like to give a shout out to Mayor Jennifer Roberts and her assistant, Amanda Birch, who went way beyond the call of duty to make sure that the mayor had a proclamation in front of her within 2 days after I requested it. And it was to make October 2017 as Charlotte Women's Small Business Month. So thank you, Mayor Roberts. I am forever grateful. And a huge thank you to Councilman Mitchell, who came up with the idea in October of 2016 and who decided that every October is going to be Charlotte Women's Small Business Month. So next year, I'll put it on your calendar so I don't mess up again. My focus today was to encourage you to vote yes for the disparity study, which you've already done. I wanted to bring to your attention that minority women are not counted in this disparity study, which is why I have my shirt that says I count, because I'm a refugee and I'm not being counted, and neither are the other minority women. We are lumped together with the minority men, whereas the white women get their own classification. So we don't know how many contracts the minority women are getting or are not getting. But based on the disparity studies that I have seen from other cities, minority women get the smallest amount of contracts. Another point that I wanted to make was that I can visit the U.S. Census website and find statistics on how many immigrants are in North Carolina, their respective ethnicity, how many of them own businesses, their respective industries, how many employees they have, their sales number, how much are they making every year. There are 15,917 immigrant entrepreneurs in the Charlotte region, and we are 9.1% of the population. However, I cannot go to the City Business Inclusion website and download information on the certified businesses and sort them by gender and ethnicity. That is impossible to do. Nowhere within the City of Charlotte website can I get a breakdown of city vendors by gender and ethnicity, and this includes the disparity study.
That's it. Oh, that's your 3 minutes. If you have your remarks written, you can share them with the clerk, and she can get us all copies.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Stefan Berwald.
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Berwald.
Okay, it's spelled Stefan.
Ah, Stephanie.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Y'all could do better than that. Good evening.
Good evening, Stephanie.
Y'all stayed here till 10 o'clock.
Right.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you this evening. I know many of you, but those who I don't know, my name is Stephanie Berwald, and I'm the president of the Metrolina Minority Contractors Association, also known as MMCA. And we're a local nonprofit construction trade association who's been around for 30 years right here in the city of Charlotte. We started here in Charlotte, and we represent minority-owned businesses with a focus on African-American businesses right here in our city. And we do education, advocacy, networking, and we focus on business opportunities. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of MMCA. I also, too, have the pleasure of serving with Velma on your Charlotte Business Inclusion Advisory Committee as your chair, but I am speaking to you today on behalf of MMCA. We also stand in support of the findings for the disparity study. Glad you all passed that. We do want to make sure that you focus and pay close attention to the recommendations that BBC put forward in the study. That would be maintaining the race-based goals, increasing the citywide MWSBE goal to 20.9%, setting MSBE goals on all city-funded projects, both informal and formal. You currently do it on all formal, but not informal, so we're definitely looking for you to consider that. And also unbundling bid packages to allow for increased participation on those packages. So over the course of the last 15 to 20 years, the city has done a couple of disparity studies, and each one has really yielded just about the same results. There's a significant disparity in African American, Native American, Hispanic, and Asian-owned businesses. And we feel that we can do better than that as a city. We need to be setting the example. We need to be the leader. When new businesses come into Charlotte, we need to be able to stand up and say, this is how we expect you to do business in our city. And so as an organization, we want to make a commitment to you, to this council, to the incoming council, that we're here to support your efforts in any way possible to move the vision of Charlotte forward. But we also want to make sure that we come up with real and achievable, attainable goals and objectives. And so with that, we definitely want you to focus on those 4 points, but we also want you to consider the following. As you're looking at the goals, break those goals down. The county breaks them down to 10% minority, which is people of color, 6% women, and 5% small business. Let's take it even a little bit further than just setting one goal. Also, we want to see us improve the contract review process, be more. 3 minutes? That was long. I didn't think it was that long. Thank you guys so much and really appreciate it. Economic development. Woo!
All right. Thank you, Steph.
And if you want to share comments with us, you're good. Okay. Our last speaker is Patrick Steptoe.
Mayor, I don't see him.
Patrick Steptoe did not wait to hang out. Okay. He had to go. Okay, those are all the speakers in support of the disparity study adoption. And so we have a motion and a second. Are there further comments? Councilor Driggs? Oh, sorry, Councilor Mitchell.
Let me just make 2 comments. One, to thank my vice chair, Ms. Isel, members Mayfield, Ashmere, and Ivory for all being in support of the BBC research and support of the MWBE Disparity Study Report. And I also want to make council aware, if you turn to page 1 or 2, it is time sensitive because our current program would expire December 31, 2017. So I like this current council to take action tonight. Just want to bring that to council members' attention.
Okay. So what's the resolution?
I'm sorry?
Say the resolution.
A motion.
It's a motion. Motions A and B, to adopt and amend Part A of Section 8 to extend race-conscious measure and gender-conscious measures through January 1, 2023.
You need a second?
I think Ms. Mayfield seconded.
Now we'll vote.
Any, Councilor Ivory?
I just want to make sure, and first I want to say thank you to Thomas and the staff, but I had a concern and they were able to converse with me. For the next phase, I want to make sure we have public input on how to rectify this disparity when it comes to minority women being identified and also having the opportunities.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, Councilor Driggs?
Thank you, Mayor. I've talked about this before. It's late. I won't repeat myself. I think it's unfortunate that the situation we're in requires that we self-identify as a city that underutilizes minority women-owned businesses with the connotation that we discriminate against them. It's just too bad, but that's the only way it works. And I also, on a more academic level, disagree with some of the methodology of the report and the way in which it purports to demonstrate what it does. However, I'm very mindful of the problem we are trying to address and the circumstances. And if we have a legal opinion that says that this works and that we're safe, that we're protected, then I'm prepared to vote for it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
That's Councilmember Driggs.
Our next item is Charlotte Walk Sidewalk Construction Ordinance Revisions. And that is an ordinance amending sidewalk construction requirements in Chapter 19 of the City Code. And this did not go through committee correct?
Yeah.
Did this go through transportation?
Oh, no. Did it go?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem, did this go through Transportation Committee?
I'm sorry, we're talking about.
Charlotte Walks?
The Charlotte Walks program went through committee, came to this council, and was adopted. In that adoption of that plan, it included addressing these things, and I believe at the presentation that the staff gave us at our dinner briefing, or what, the last time we heard, as a follow-up to this, it was felt that this was amendment to the construction requirements, and the ultimate goal of having the connections made where there has to be change or development, that this was a part of that program. So whether or not you support it or agree with that or not, the intent was, our big goals were to have a walkable city by connecting with sidewalks, and in order to accomplish that, the staff brings forward the ordinance amending the sidewalk construction. So it depends on your point of view. I know some of them are not the same.
Councilor Mitchell?
Mayor and council, thank you. I think all of us should have a copy of a letter that that's signed by Julie Porter of the Housing Partnership for to meet you, and a young lady with Mosaic Development Group, and the whole conversation, as well as Joe Padilla with Rebic reached out to us about the impact on affordable housing this could have. So I would love if Pamela Weidman, Ms. Weidman, I think one question was the impact it might have of those we have already have won housing trust fund dollars, and now for them having to go back and adjust construction prices based on this ordinance. So can you share some light on how we will handle that, please?
Good afternoon, Pamela Weidman. Let me say that I think the question, the letter that was sent and the concerns that were raised were about if this would increase the price of affordable housing. And the answer is yes. With that said, it's from a staff perspective, we're not asking to relax that, because you all focus on quality, affordable housing, and so we want the affordable housing to look as good as the market rate. What we do suggest from a staff perspective is that we look at other programs that are already in place, like our sidewalk program and other infrastructure programs, to help make up the cost of future projects. I think if you go back, you might be opening up a can of worms for developments that have already been provided. That should be most times it is in a construction cost. So I think going forward, this would be something for us to look at. And one last thing, at dinner, I acknowledged the outgoing council members who really helped with affordable housing, and I failed to acknowledge two very important people. That is Ms. Fallon, thank you for your work, and the mayor, Mayor Jennifer Roberts. Thank you so much.
I did feel a little left out.
Me too, since I took the brunt of all those nasty letters.
I'm getting old.
Emails.
Target to my
We'll send you some, Claire.
And paper, and she hasn't stopped writing letters to the Observer about me.
Okay, terrific. Are there further comments, questions? Councilman Phipps?
Yeah, I have a question about some language in the things that's going to be done. It says a new requirement that any new development which removes more than a half of its sidewalk along a thoroughfare shall be required to bring all sidewalk along that thoroughfare into compliance with current city standards. So what are we saying there? If it's a new development, I mean, would it have sidewalks yet? I mean, so what sidewalks are we removing? Huh?
Can you tell me?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the...
Councilman Mayfield has an answer.
So a perfect example of that would be on West Boulevard. So we have a new Family Dollar that was built a couple of years ago. That Family Dollar built not under our new sidewalk standards with setbacks, but under the old standards. So we being residents along the West Boulevard corridor, staff, I went out on two of the occasions. It was a couple of different tours where we literally physically walked along West Boulevard. you have sidewalks that are narrow enough where if you and I, as two adults, were walking, we would not be walking side by side down the sidewalk. So you had this new development that came in, and opposed to building under the new standards and having the wider sidewalks, including the setback and the protections, whereas any additional new development that comes along would be connecting to the new wider sidewalks. You have this older sidewalk that's in place under, what was it, 6 feet wide, the old sidewalks that we put in, which is not conducive to the walkability plan that we have aspired and we have committed to throughout the city and other projects. So you look at South End at the same time. South End, every time there's a rezoning of TOD, that's under the new standards. So you're creating these new wider sidewalks that give more protection and more space for pedestrians. But at the same time, as that older development is being redeveloped, we're now connecting. So if you ride through parts of South End, you'll see the new wider sidewalks and you'll see the older. So as new development is coming in, it's connecting to the new sidewalks, which is giving us more accessibility and safety. That's just two examples of how it plays out if you were driving down or if you were walking along and saw it and experienced it.
Right.
Councilman Phipps, go ahead.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, if they remove a section of a sidewalk that's in front of their development, what we're saying is not only if they have to replace their sidewalk, but they have to replace the sidewalk of the whole corridor. So that's what I'm trying to get my arms around. Why would they have to replace the sidewalk for the whole corridor when theirs could be just limited to their development? That's what I wanted to know. That's what I want to.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Scott Curry. I'm with the Charlotte Department of Transportation. So that interpretation is not exactly correct. The portion of sidewalk that would be required to be replaced in that instance would only be the sidewalk within the boundaries of that property, not along the entire corridor.
Okay, because that's how the language is written in our packet. You know, that's how it's written. It says that it has to bring all sidewalk along that thoroughfare into compliance with the city street standards. So are you saying then that is worded wrong or not what we really wanted it to say? Because that's what it says under the legislation text.
I believe it says sidewalk along a thoroughfare which amounts to more than 50% of that property's frontage. So it's a very narrowly constrained ordinance to just that property's width. It's not chasing sidewalk up and down the corridor.
Okay, I'm looking at page 2 of our packet, the second bullet. That's where I'm getting that language from. So you're saying then that bullet means only in front of their property? Because that's where I'm getting it from. That's what I was confused about.
That's correct. Yeah, it's only in front of their property.
Okay, and that says that.
Yes, sir.
Let's see what it says.
Done, Councilor Phipps?
Yes, I'm done.
Councilor Driggs.
Thank you. We agreed, we voted for a general kind of goal of sidewalks, and it was aspirational, or it was a statement of kind of a general policy. And now this comes back, which actually for some people is going to create quite a burden. You're taking 14 feet away from them, and there's no test as to whether this is in a location where anybody's actually likely to walk. And so you have the possibility of a kind of a silly outcome where you've created this beautiful planting strip and sidewalk at considerable expense to a property owner who acquired his property on the assumption that he had certain rights, and it may not be necessary. So I would just like to give council a little more time to think about whether a more differentiated implementation of our sidewalk policy, which I fully support, would make sense, given that there are costs associated with this as it's proposed. Do you have any idea how many locations, for example, would be affected by this in the normal course of events? How big a deal is this?
Councilmember Danny Pleasant, City Manager's Office. Formerly Director of Charlotte Department of Transportation, long history on working with the City Council to produce a more walkable community and have a cohesive sidewalk program. In 2007, the City Council adopted urban street design guidelines where the standard sidewalk and planting strip widths were 14 feet for the planting strip, 6 feet for the sidewalk. That was in recognition of city's commitment to wanting to be having tree-lined streets to fulfill part of its tree goal. Also recognizing that wider sidewalks are necessary, particularly in commercial areas. And remember, these provisions only apply to major thoroughfares. And most of their affordable housing is not. We're not building units in affordable housing, we're building neighborhoods, which typically are not lined up along the commercial thoroughfare streets. So council has a long history of those dimensions being the standard through ordinance, through your subdivision ordinance, for building sidewalks and planting strips. This simply is to fill a couple loopholes. One that requires developers to replace back of curb sidewalk on their frontage, usually 4 feet wide, generally agreed and deemed as unsafe, to replace that sidewalk with the standard that's required of everybody all across the city. The second provision is to fill in sidewalk gaps where development has been allowed not to build a sidewalk on their frontage if they developed, I believe, less than 50% of the tract. Is that correct?
5%.
And so what you'd have is you'd have a developer come build 50% of the tract. Then a few years later, that next 25% would come, the next 25% would come, and still no sidewalk. So it's just to try to fill those couple of loopholes in the current ordinance. That was anticipated and talked about quite a bit in the Charlotte Walks plan that you all considered and voted unanimously to approve. Thank you.
So you are, however, imposing a cost on anybody who would redevelop their property if they have to contend with, like, is there any idea of a fee in lieu type of solution, like in stormwater, or is this just, because on some sites, this is going to eat up a big chunk of the land.
I think you'll find provisions.
Sidewalks on either side.
You'll find
you may have one site and smaller sidewalks either side, and you're saying, I need you to create this little strip of Eden on your site. So, again, I get the idea, and I think to try to move in that direction makes sense. I just have a feeling that as written, this thing could result in some nonsensical outcomes.
And there is a provision in the language that allows the city engineer to make an interpretation of when the standards aren't reasonable standards for a number of reasons, and you can read through those in the actual text so that there can be some diversion from that strict standard.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Smith.
Where I struggle with this is we keep throwing the word developer around and as if these folks are going through the typical rezoning process that developers often go through. It says right here, if the total built upon area of the site reaches 25% or more of the total area of the property, sidewalks and drainage facilities shall be required. Just hang on, Dan. How I read this is we're telling an existing landowner that has an existing zoning and a right to build on their property that we're going to layer in an additional regulation that they're going to have to comply with. Again, for the policy in which somebody's coming along and they're asking the city for rezoning, I think it's more than fair to say part of that process, we're going to grant you the rezoning, but you're going to have to meet this new standard. As I read this is going to be punitive to landowners, and it's not just developers. This is small businesses that may have a quarter of an acre, 3/4 of an acre site. They've got a 3,000 square foot building. If they want to add 2,000 square feet on it, which is not going to be a big deal, the dang sidewalk may cost more than their addition. And to me, that's where I'm struggling with this. This is not, to me, this is, we're asking individual landowners that have a right to build on the property subsidize our sidewalk program.
You're correct. You get sidewalks with almost every rezoning. You build that in as a condition.
Right, and I agree with that.
This is intended to capture the by right development that is leaving those gaps in the sidewalk system.
And I think if that by right, and aside from Ed's concern about how much land they're taking, this is just me, pure and simple. They own the property. They have a right to build something on it. By code, if it's a conditional use, if they've already asked for it as conditional rezoning, they're going to have to come back through the process. But this is taking somebody, say on Park Road, that owns an O2 land that by right they could put a 40,000 square foot building on there. And now we're going to say, yeah, but if you do that, you got to build these sidewalks when it's their right to build on their property. If this is such an issue for the city, we need to figure out a way that we pay for the plugging in the gap. But I don't think we should put that burden on the individual landowner. And again, for the rezonings, we're asking a developer who wants something from the city, and I think that's a very fair exchange. I love these new sidewalks that are being built. I don't mind the 14-foot. I like the buffer. We all feel safe. We get the trees, but we're getting something in exchange for that. We're going to grant you the right to rebuild on this, but to me, this is punitive to individual landowners, and I can't support it. So,
Mayor Pro Tem.
I understand and the arguments that are being made, but I also think we have to think about this in the context of, well, if you're rebuilding and development is happening, oftentimes it's because of the investments that we're making and the development and growth that we're having in our city right now. And that one of the things that we think about is, well, when we're having all these opportunities to create, there is a sense that pedestrian safety and our Vision Zero is connected to being able to have walkable sidewalks that are not right up against the curb. So there's a balance that has to be taken, and yes, I understand that there is an argument that you could make that says, well, you know, I'm on Park Road, I've had this place, I've had it for a long time, and I developed it in 1950, and now it's time to upgrade, and I have the opportunity to do that, and I want to keep the sidewalk to the curb. And I just remember very much the presentation of where that happens and the sense of safety and how people walk in our community. So yes, there is a cost to it, and I understand that, but I wonder, what is our cost if we don't actually take this action to say we're going to try to create that pedestrian safety? And maybe it is the size or the strip, but a large part of it, if we're going to get there, it's going to be something that we're going to have to figure out how to do. And most of the ways that we get sidewalks done is regulatory. It's not from sidewalk funds that we have on our bond referendum. So I'm going to support this because I think it relates to especially those parts of our community that are being developed or redeveloped even without rezoning, because it is accomplishing something as a community and the growth and the opportunity that we have that takes what we did in the 1950s and 60s and changes it, that I think will last this community a lot longer, and the cost is there. I recognize that, but I think it's the thing that we're going to have to actually try to accomplish if we're going to make the city safe for people to walk.
Councilor Mayfield?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your comments, Mayor Pro Tem. The challenge that I have is when we talk about by right and we talk about the realities of language that we have put into place regarding policy. We opened the door for 5-year plus vested rights. So how does that play out on the ground? I can tell you multiple instances throughout District 3 where it is not playing out in a positive light. People love the idea of Bryant Park now, which started out at one price point and is now at a very different one. Well, Bryant Park is a prime example of something that was approved many years ago by a previous council that had so many years of vested rights on it. So you had a development that was 640 plus apartment units that now has been completely redeveloped without doing any upgrades to the sidewalks whatsoever. So it is the same broken up old sidewalks that are along. And then what is going to end up happening is government is then going to be looked at to come in later and figure out how to make an investment to put in wider sidewalks when the developer had an opportunity when they completely leveled 640 plus units and design the area to make that investment, because you have benefited off of all the funding and infrastructure that this council and previous council had invested all along the Freedom Drive corridor and Fremont West. So we can't continue to have the conversation where you always want the win-win of, well, by right, you should be able to do this. Well, when you purchase that, that means that we need to have, and I agree, we need to have a different conversation regarding our language and our policy. Staff already knows I'm not a fan of 7-year vested rights or 5-year vested rights, because the world changes every 2.5, 3 years. But because that language is in place, we are not getting the connectivity, the accessibility, and the walkability that we are aspiring to. I believe that this language will help to fill in those gaps as development is happening, and it doesn't get triggered until you're looking at doing a new development, unless we're going to go back and make sure and say any new development that comes before us starting tomorrow is going to have to be a conditional rezoning, so that we can make sure that it comes back before some form of council, whether it's tomorrow or 4 years from now, where it can be addressed. This is one of the best ways for us to try to have the connectivity and the accessibility and to be this walkable community that we say we want to be. You can't have it both ways.
Councilmember Smith.
So real quickly, this isn't just development. This ports to if you make an addition on your property as well. In the scenario you described, I would love to see a carve out to how you capture that. If we gave somebody a rezoning that allowed them to make the changes, to me, those are the exact type people that we've granted you something, and so the new sidewalk standards should be held. They should be held to that standard, and that's where I'd love to see it go back to the committee. The larger context came through committee. The policy didn't come through committee, and we did all vote. I supported the sidewalk program, and Scott's been out and helped us on Sharon Acres and a couple areas in the city with sidewalks. So, and we need it. We need them in South Park. We need them everywhere. So, I'm a big fan of trying to make things more walkable. I think there's a better way to do it that's less punitive to landowners as opposed to developers. And I think we're looking at this in the context that this is going to impact developers. It's going to impact landowners and individual small businesses just as much as it's going to impact somebody else. And so that's. But I would love, if it goes back to committee and you can figure out a way to retroactively say, hey, we were granted this. Yeah, I mean, those are the people where you want, and we don't want to have those breaks.
So we had a motion. We have a motion.
No, I don't think there's a motion.
Do we have a motion yet, Madam Clerk?
There's no motion, I don't think.
Okay. Would someone want to make a motion?
I'd like to move that we send it back to committee
Second.
for
Okay.
further deliberation.
Okay, we had a motion to approve in a second, and so you're doing a substitute motion to send it back to committee?
Yes, at that point, it's a substitute motion.
Okay, a second. Okay, so we go on the substitute first. Okay, so
All in favor?
the substitute is send it back to committee. All in favor, raise your hand.
Really?
7, 8. All opposed?
To send it back to committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, send it back to committee. All opposed?
Oh.
Just if you oppose sending it back, just so we have that on the record. You got that, Madam Clerk?
All night long.
Okay. So that will go back to committee for the sidewalk amendment.
Oh, no, Ma say lean back.
That's on
To
Wednesday.
tweak that.
Oh, I'm gonna check it out too.
Everybody knows what, going back to committee, what you're going to look at. Okay.
So that,
Okay. It's just we were so specific about one committee, we had to know exactly what to know about, and this one, we kind of all get it. All right, we're moving on to number 14.
Yes.
And we had a conversation.
That's a winning vote.
Should we
Yeah,
just send this
conference-
back to committee?
You didn't catch that.
Move to send it back to
City
committee.
manager.
We move to send item 14 back to committee.
So, just so you know.
So this is a very important item. We had a meeting this afternoon about our city manager's compensation. And we had a good discussion among the council and mayor and with the city manager about his progress in this first year. It's hard to believe it's not even been a complete year yet. It's like a few days away from being a complete year. Only a few days away. But I just want to say, and I know Councilmember Smith has the actual numbers, what we voted on and agreed to, but I just want to say that we pretty much agreed that it has been a terrific year. That and she clapped quickly so that I wouldn't say too much because it's late. But we just want to say we appreciate the city manager jumped right in and faced the challenges that our city has, a growing city with a lot going on. And we are greatly appreciative, and we hope that the compensation package means that you will be willing to stay and do some more hard work because we greatly appreciate your commitment. And we're so glad that your family enjoys it here. And it's time, and the last time is time. So, Councilmember Smith has the numbers, what we voted on.
Great excitement and brevity that I make the following motion. I move that the city manager is awarded a base pay increase of 6% effective December 2nd, 2017 in recognition of his performance since his hire date of December 1st, 2016.
Second.
His new salary will be $318,000. In addition, I move that the city manager's 401A contribution be increased from $20,000 to $21,611 effective December 2nd, 2017. The additional $1,611 into Mr. Jones' 401A account is due to legal cap on the amount of the city's contribution to his 401K account, and this would keep us in with the contract in which we hired him. I'm proud to make the motion. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure to work with you the past year. You're going to continue to do great things for the city.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, yay!
You got that vote?
Councilor Kinsey. No.
I am
10
opposed.
for, oh, I get to vote on that.
Yeah.
Your hand was up.
I was an aye also.
Both hands, counts twice.
Mayor.
There's some history on this that got my predecessor in trouble.
Okay.
The mayor does not get to vote on raises. The mayor votes on hiring and firing, but not on raises.
Oh, okay.
So
She would have voted.
we have some history on
I
that issue.
thought it was logical, but
I understand why it's logical.
it was
Yes.
logical.
Yes.
So 10-1,
Okay,
right?
so take those two hands away.
So what's next?
Okay, so next we have, item 15 has been deferred. So we move into, yes, the whole solid waste thing is deferred. So we have appointments, and tonight, council will make appointments to boards and commissions, and we've already voted by ballot, and our clerk is going to read us if there are any that got 6 votes or more. Madam Clerk.
Yes, ma'am. On the Bicycle Advisory Committee, Nadine Ford received 6 votes and is therefore appointed to that position.
Congratulations, Ms. Ford.
Congratulations.
For the Business Advisory Committee, there needs to be a runoff between D'Amico Faulkner, who received 5 votes, and Brian Geathers, who received 4.
Mayor,
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to change my vote from Thomas Rothrock to D'Amico Foster,
That's what I'm talking about.
and that will make it 6 for him.
Go on with your bad self.
Thank you.
Okay,
Is that your
so there are now 6 votes for D'Amico Faulkner, correct, Madam Clerk? Okay,
For the Charlotte Housing Authority, the incumbent Sheila Jones received 10 votes and is therefore reappointed.
congratulations, Sheila.
For the Civil Service Board, Mayor, it could be handled either way. You could vote to break the tie between Harvey Kadowitz and Carolyn Millen, or you could vote for the 3, Harvey Kadowitz, Carolyn Millen, or Victoria Watlington.
Okay, Victoria Watlington, there's appointing 1, Victoria Watlington has 3, or has 5 votes, has 5 votes.
Yes, ma'am.
So is there anyone who's willing to, Councilor Mitchell?
I would change my vote from Carolyn Milligan to Victoria Watling to give
Thank
her
you, sir.
6.
Okay,
D3.
so Victoria Watlington
Congratulations, Ms. Watlington.
appointed. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with all 6 votes. And that's all the committees for tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that is our last item. Mayor and council topics. Councilor Ivory.
I just want to make sure everyone knows about 29th at 8 o'clock that the Charlotte Rescue Mission is having a ribbon cutting. It's going to change the lives of so many and so deserving. That's at 8 o'clock on November 29th, and it's for the cafe. Is it a.m.? 8 a.m.
8 a.m. 29th.
On the 29th, yes.
29th and-
Yes. And
That's
please
opening
come.
already?
It's serving food.
Fast.
Not for James.
I'm just raising a question, that's all.
Okay, Councilor Ajmira.
My share is excellent.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand this is the last council meeting for our current council, and I appreciate working with all of you. Some of you I will not probably be serving alongside, so I'll miss all of your leadership. I understand it takes a lot of sacrifices to serve. So Ms. Kinsey, Ms. Fallon, Mr. Smith, and Ms. Roberts, I'll miss you all on City Council. So thank you for your service and leadership. Oh, I'm sorry, and Miss Ivory. I'm sorry.
Look at.
You were looking this way.
Wrong way.
She just seems like she's going to be here forever.
Councilor Driggs.
I'd love to make a long speech, but I'm going to pass.
Councilor Kinsey.
Just awfully proud of our city and for the NLC. It's time for me to go home. NLC conference. It was just absolutely wonderful. Staff, it was great. Randy, everybody there. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Councilor Fallon.
I just want to say goodbye. The greatest joy I've ever had was being able to help people, and from this seat you could.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Councilor Isel.
I just also want to say to the outgoing council members and to the mayor that it's been an honor to serve with you all. This is my first council, and it's just been, for everything that we've been through, as I've told people, the best part of it was the people that I served with. So thank you all.
So next Monday will be the swearing in of the new council, and there will be actually a little bit of time for outgoing council to say goodbye there as well. We all start, the outgoing council and mayor start, and then we hand the reins over to the new ones who get sworn in. There are also 2 mayor's awards that I give out.
That's right.
And everyone will get a run of show for how it goes next week. But this is our last full meeting for those of us who are rotating off, and so I will also add my thanks to, I'm really glad we ended on a couple of heated discussions. I mean, it was like a really meaty meeting tonight. It was. And that's what policy is all about. It's about getting in the arena. There's that great Teddy Roosevelt quote about, those critics who are sitting there and they're like watching and they're cold and heartless, but it's actually getting in the arena that makes a difference. And we're all in the arena. And so I appreciate struggling and working with all of you on some really terrific things that our city has accomplished. And we have a lot more that we can do too, and it's going to be a great new council coming in. I look forward to welcoming them. Thank you all for your good work. Mayor Pro Tem.
I also would add this kind words of sentiment. It's been a great opportunity to work with everyone, and I look forward to perhaps a little bit more fun and congratulations as we hopefully have supper together soon and for next Monday. But I do want to ask the city manager, the woman that came and spoke about the sinkholes today, and the issues there. I think this is the second person that we've had come in and talk about this, where actually houses and homes were in danger. And I know we get those reports back, and it's a long list, but we get so much information. But I'd actually like to see more than just the column that has, here's the follow-up, but something that really is responsive and how those 2 issues are being addressed. I think one of them is in Councilmember Mayfield's district. Isn't that where?
More than one.
Well, I know, but I think the one that I was thinking about with Tony Tuppence and her spouse, and so when people come in and we've got those kinds of issues, I don't know what we're doing with them, and perhaps I need to just learn a little bit more. But if this is a question that we have a responsibility to respond to because of development or issues that we've created with growth, or is it something that's just occurring naturally? Somehow I'd like to have a better understanding of those issues and would like a report on that.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, Mayor Pro Tem, actually I had our deputy follow her out, and because we agree with you, there needs to be a bit more high touch. When people come and bring their concerns here.
I would agree with you. I thank you for doing that, and thanks to the deputy. But it's almost like a list of chronic issues brought to us by citizens that need to have a solution. It's like a chronic condition that we've got, especially around these kinds of things, that I think we ought to be thinking, how many people are coming down with this problem, and what is the institutional response to that problem?
Councilor Ivory, did you have a...
The only thing I wanted to say about that, there was a major sinkhole in District 2, and the staff responded, and I've gone there repeatedly, and they said it would be done by November, and believe it, I've been several days, and will hopefully be finished by this Thursday. They are fixing it if you bring it to their attention.
Thank you.
Councilor Mitchell.
No announcement, Mayor, Council. I'm just letting all the outgoing council members know that I will be embarrassing you all next Monday. I wrote a song for each and every one of you, so I will be singing a song next Monday.
Do I have to dance?
You have to dance.
Oh my gosh, no, really?
I'm letting you know, Claire, you get your groove on. So, I'll embarrass you next Monday.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. Councilor Phipps.
Yeah, thank you. I want to also echo my sentiments as well to the outgoing council members and look forward to some comments on next Monday night. But I do want to announce 2 events that's coming up in the district soon. This Saturday, December the 2nd, the Hidden Valley Community Parade and Festival will be going on from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you all be getting one of these, one in your packets this week. Okay. So I think we got a grand, it's rumored that we got the Grand Marshal here sitting around on this dais today. That's going to be the Grand Marshal at that Hidden Valley Parade and Festival. Also, a week from Saturday on December the 9th, we're going to be having Reconcile Charlotte. This is the second event that Samaritan's Feet is putting on at Martin Luther King Middle School. Also, this will be in your packet as well for December the 9th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I know last Reconcile Charlotte, we had several council members and the Mayor Pro Tem came and participated in that event with Manny Ohome and his team. They helped us out a lot during in the aftermath of the Keith Lamont Scott shooting, and this is their way again to just continue that effort of healing in our community in view of some of the other officer-involved shootings that we've had. So look forward to you all coming out. These will be in y'all's packets, so I hope you would open them and be guided by these announcements. Thanks a lot.
It's been an honor and a privilege to serve with everybody at this dais. It has been truly the best 4 years of my life. I'll miss each of you. I won't miss you so much I'll be at the dinner because I'm going to see the Tar Heels play. Sorry. Tar Heels are playing Davidson tonight on Friday night. But appreciate it. And if my trash doesn't get picked up, I'm calling Luana. I've already told her I'm going to call Luana.
I am a public servant, so I will help you, sir.
At midnight. Councilor Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to make sure that everyone is aware that on tomorrow evening at St. Paul Baptist Church, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Queens City Metropolitan Chapter is hosting a series of events. It is titled the Knowledge Series. Where do you go for help when seeking affordable housing, whether purchasing or renting? They have a really good lineup of speakers. I have the opportunity to also be sharing regarding what we are doing on behalf of the city as your chair of housing, but want to invite everyone. That will be tomorrow evening, starting at 6 p.m., as well as reminding the residents near Tuckasegee, the greater Enderley Park area, the entire community at Beatty Ray Thomas Center, at 701 Tuckasegee Road on November the 30th at 6:30. We will be having our latest update on the Tuckasegee Thrift Berry Hill roundabout between the 5 points. So we will be getting our latest update. Again, that will be starting at 6:30 p.m. at 11:30 at the Beatty Ray Thomas Center. Thank you. Oh, and I would love to congratulate all of my colleagues. Some of us have been together since 2011, some 13, 15. We fuss, we fight. I know that ultimately we love this city. We do the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. You have been amazing people to work with. Hopefully we've learned a little bit from each other, and I wish you nothing but continued success and happy holidays.
I'm still calling you.
And I'm still, and Mom, you can still call on me, even though he's gonna be gone.
All right. I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.